Want to call the East Greenbush Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 26th to order. All board members are present. We have Mr. Mann is virtual tonight. And if you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on our agenda is Student Council, Ryan, and no Emma tonight? Just Ryan?
Unfortunately, it's just me. Emma is in quarantine right now, but she'll be back in action soon. All right, so students are currently wrapping up midterms and finals this week, and we're getting ready for the next semester, which starts Monday. And something I talked about last meeting was how Student Council is looking for more student feedback, and we're looking to meet with Mr. Harkin about things we can do for the school, but we have actually postponed that meeting because of said COVID interruptions. Right. And then the final thing I have is 2 seniors at Columbia, Lauren Preston and Michaela Kendrick, are carrying on the Columbia Kicks Cancer legacy and are running to be the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Students of the Year. They have signed up to fundraise as much money as possible for the foundation through March 10th, which is when the campaign ends. And so Student Council is trying to help them out. So on February 4th, the school will be wearing red for World Cancer Day to raise awareness for the campaign, the diseases they're trying to put an end to. And Lauren and Michaela will be selling red wristbands. And alongside them, Student Council will be supporting them by having an ice cream fundraiser. And in the coming months, they're going to have some Dine to Donates. And I will keep you updated as to when those will be going on. The dates are not yet decided. So yeah, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the draft minutes for our last meeting on January 12th. Any revisions, comments, or questions on the minutes? All board members were present. Seeing no comments or revisions, I need a motion to approve the minutes. Jennifer, second. Frank, all those in favor? Approved. Next, we will go to our board forum. I think we lost Mark on video, but let me turn it off his camera. But okay, so we'll go around the board. To my left, Cheryl, we'll start with you. Anything? Michelle? John? Good. Jennifer? Good. Kathleen, you're good. Joanne, nothing. And Frank, nothing. Mark, got anything? Good. Okay, and I'm good, and I'll reserve any comments for later in the meeting. Next order of business is our public forum. Residents, students, employees, and business representatives of the East Greenbush Central School District may address the board on matters concerning programs and/or operations of the district, other than matters involving personnel. Members of the board do not directly respond to citizen concerns during the public forum. If a response is appropriate, either the president or superintendent will contact the individual in the near future. Those persons wishing to address the board will be recognized by the chair of the meeting and should state for the record their name and address or affiliation with the district or business. While the board does not wish to infringe upon free speech protections, it must be stressed that the visitors forum is not deemed to be an open forum. The board president will conduct the forum for the orderly and efficient operation of board business. In addition, any remarks which may be considered defamatory or stigmatizing are prohibited or declared out of order. All comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is anyone who would like to address the board at this time? Yes, sir. Yep, the microphone right there. Yep. And just let us know your name and address and stuff. Yeah, thanks.
All right, good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Sini. I live at 2 Plaza Ave, right off Third Ave Extension. I'm here tonight because I do want to address some things. Obviously, I can understand your guys' stipulation. I hope I don't come off combative. That's not my intent. I work as a police officer in this area in Rensselaer County. And so as much as you guys are frustrated with what's going on and having to deal with every division that's going on in our country, I certainly have to deal with the same thing. But in that respect, I come here with some knowledge of the law, and that's one of the things I want to talk about. Recently, we saw that everything was overturned, and I'm speaking mostly with Mr. Simmons. Thank you for your time. Where it was overturned and it was found unconstitutional by Judge Redmaker, who is a Supreme Court judge. And then I did see that just the other day, it ended up getting stayed by another appellate court judge. My question and frustration was that in that moment that it was immediately overturned, why we didn't see some kind of mark from the school depicting that and or saying that's what's going on right now. So that's one part of it. I teach my kids respect for everybody. I teach my kids to deal with all kinds of people the same way I have to as an officer and as just a good human in general. And in this case, I also teach them to follow the law. When that was overturned, we discussed it at length. And so then I have to deal with these questions from a 7 and 9-year-old who understand what I say, and I speak to them like adults. Why are we wearing masks still? In my family, we're not a mask family. We're just not. And the funny thing about it is that shouldn't bother anybody, because everybody has their choice. That's my family's choice. Other people have their own choices, and I respect everybody's choice. That's my number one thing. But trying to explain to them why they weren't allowed to take their mask off, and then the next day saying, okay, now it's stayed, then trying to re-explain, all right, this is the legal process, and so in fact, you will have to wear your mask again. It's beyond confusing, and I feel at times that we're getting to a point where I'm teaching my kids to not listen to people in this room. And that breaks my heart. That's never been my intent. I trust you guys. You guys are elected. You have children. I know both left, right, up, down. Doesn't matter where you come from. The one thing we've always found common ground is on children, whether we're talking about the Dunn landfill or this matter. And I just hate seeing the divisiveness. And I'm just looking from you guys for a clear answer. If they push this mask mandate and they say that it is found once again unconstitutional, are you guys going to allow these children to make a choice, or in effect, let me make a choice for what's best for my kids? I mean, are you comfortable answering that, or is that something we can do an email or?
I'd be happy to answer it if Mr. Buno wants me to answer
If you
it.
like to share.
Sure. Or I could wait till if there's any more public comment, then I'd be happy to respond to all of it, your questions and concerns. And if there are other public speakers that want to comment, honestly, I would prefer to listen to everyone's comments and then I'll address them all at once.
I agree. I'll set this right here then.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we have in our agenda this evening, as you've noticed, we have an area called discussion items. And part of that is our updates on what's happening in terms of the current state of things related to COVID and what the school is doing in terms of our safety protocols and things like that. So, and that's usually led by our superintendent, and the board will discuss things. But so Mr. Simons will listen to any other members of the public, and then we'll get back to you. Okay, we'll talk.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So anybody else want to speak? Sure.
My name's Jeremy Schuhart. I live on 261 Miller Road in Castleton on Hudson. It's my first year coming to the school district. We just moved out of the city I grew up in for reasons of the school that we were in because of the Dunn landfill. So I'm actually happy to be in a better school district for my child. I was definitely disappointed because we are not a mask family. I'm wearing this in respect to you guys because I don't want any issues. But I don't wear it at work. I don't wear it anywhere I go. It's just, I believe in freedom. It's what I fought for as a combat veteran. And having this over my mouth causes me more issues in my head than it does for my health. So with that said, when we got that email and you seen the court decide that that was an unconstitutional mandate, my daughter still went to school and I still had to send her with a mask because I got an email from this school district saying, in response to that ruling from a Supreme Court judge, we still are going to follow what is supposed to be coming down as a stay, or the Department of Health telling you that the kids still have to wear masks. So I'm just trying to also get clarification, like Mr. Cini, on what is the school board's stance on the respect to parents and being allowed to make the decision for their child. And as school board members, you guys are the voice that is elected to represent the parents as our voice. Whether you're left, right, center, that don't matter. You're supposed to be a voice for the constituents, whether they are the minority or the majority. And you are the boss of this, the head of the school. You guys are what help the superintendent make decisions. So I'm trying to understand on what the school's response is to the mask, and also what is your plan for next year if, God forbid, our governor decides that they are going to try to make a mandate for them to have the vaccination. What is the school board stance? What is the superintendent's stance? Are you going to deny access to a child depending on what these elected officials decide to do, because they have a political agenda that can affect the future of these kids' health, because there are issues, whether you believe it or not, with things with these vaccines. So what is the school board's stance on that, or the superintendent's stance on that? Because there are kids who are 7, 8, in the school that you're going to then try to force, or a teen, to get a vaccine, whether it's their parents' decision or not, to attend a public school that we are paying money to have access to. So I hope it don't happen, but if it does, I want to know to be prepared on how to bring the fight forward, because I will fight for my child's health until I die. And I want to make sure that she makes the decisions based on her health and what we decide until she is able to make that decision. And that's really my biggest concern, is the mask and the vaccine mandate, according to the school board or the superintendent, and what your guys' plan is to fight for me and my family who does not agree with it and is not a mask family, what can we do to have your support to help us to make sure my daughter has a good education?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Do you want to address any of the comments, Mr. Simons? Thanks.
So I want to thank the public speakers for coming tonight. I appreciate hearing your concerns and your questions. I want to address the timing question that was asked. On Monday evening, somewhere between 8 and 8:30 in the evening, we were notified, we meaning all school districts in New York State, of that court decision that occurred in Nassau County. Within minutes of that notification, we received additional information both from the New York State Education Department, our local BOCES, and our attorney that represents the board, indicating that the New York State Department of Health was going to petition for a stay to appeal the decision. We also received information that same evening, on Monday evening, from the New York State Education Department, indicating that due to the actions that the New York State Department of Health was going to take in regard to the appeal, schools should continue to follow the mask requirement. All public schools, and to some degree private schools within the state of New York, report and follow the policies and the regulations of the Commissioner of Education in the New York State Education Department. So over the course of the last few years, as we've been responding to the various requirements that come from both the New York State Department of Health as well as the Department of Education, we have to be mindful of both. And in the case of the decision that was made in Nassau County, our State Commissioner of Education has the authority over the school districts to say to the school districts, you have to follow the guidance and the regulations of the New York State Education Department. So at this point, we reviewed all of that information and put out the notification the next morning to avoid any confusion and conflict that might result from hearing different messages or hearing information that might be confusing, as you mentioned, to our parents. So right now, as it stands, we have been informed by the New York State Education Department that all public schools are supposed to follow the mask requirement. And we will continue to monitor the situation regarding the legal process. And if that determination of the State Education Department changes, it would be likely that we would have a discussion here within our board meetings. We would hear public comment as we are hearing this evening, and then we will make a determination going forward. But right now, our school board, Board of Education, nor I have any decision-making authority to suspend the mask requirement. If that occurs, we'll discuss it with our board, and obviously we would take under consideration any public comment at that time. So we really don't have the discretion that to change the situation at this point.
Board members, any other comments regarding the? John? Yes.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you for speaking tonight. And I'm a former police officer, 29 years, so thank you for your service. Thank you for your military service. One of the things that we are challenged with as public servants here is we're bound by law. It's very similar to being in the military and on the police force. There are laws that you might not personally agree with or are faced with decisions that you're bound by doctrine and law. And that's one of these situations. John Dunn's personal opinion is it's a personal choice. But unfortunately, when I took the oath for this and all my board members were bound by the law. And I can tell you, as me personally, when the time comes to have the conversation, when we have the opportunity to address this issue in a very serious way, we will give it serious consideration and all the debates will be had. And when we have the time to make the decisions that we as individuals feel is proper. It will be in a public discourse, it will be a public debate, and we will move forward as a school community. I can tell you, I speak for everybody here on the board and our staff and our school community, that we are here for the children. That's the most important thing of our task. And I would encourage everybody in our school community to write their legislators and the governor and anybody who will listen above the chain, because that's what I personally do in regards to these situations. And hopefully our voices can be heard and that we can try to move this very difficult situation forward so that we can get back to the business of just educating our children, because they are the true people who are really suffering in this. And unfortunately, there's a lot of adults over there on State Street who just really are disconnected from this process. So again, I really appreciate your courage and strength to stand up in front of your community and voice your opinion. For that, I thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, John. Well said. I think part of it, oh,
I thought Mark had his hand up.
Mark, do you have anything? No, you're good? And I think part of it is that, throughout almost every board meeting, we talked about this not too long ago, almost every board meeting, there's some kind of an update, there's some kind of a conversation regarding what's happened with COVID over the last 2 years. What's best for our kids, what's best for our community, what's best for our staff, to have those conversations about what we can do to make sure we're in person every day and do everything we can to keep our kids and our staff safe and keep us in school every day. We don't want to go remote. We don't want to do those things. We want to make sure that we can stay in school, educate our kids, because we know being in person is the best thing for them. So, as we get thrown these challenges, typically it happens on a Friday or something like that. We try to figure out what we can do and move forward with the best we can. This decision created a lot of confusion, a lot of issues for schools, and we'll roll with it as best we can. Talk about it. As Mr. Simon said, we follow the guidance of the state education department that as a public school, and we'll continue to talk about it and bring those issues forward as best we can. And we listen to our parents. We have 4,000 students, innumerable parents, taxpayers, community members who we also represent, and we're looking out for the whole and understand the concerns that you have. So I really appreciate you coming forward, talking about these things. We know it's challenging. And we're going to do our best to address the needs of our kids and our students and our families and our staff. Okay, so thank you. Anyone else? Oh, okay.
Are we going to do the second part about the vaccine now?
Yeah, vaccines, sure.
Currently, the vaccine for coronavirus, COVID-19, is not a required immunization for enrollment in a public school. The district does not have the authority, nor would we enact a local policy to require the vaccine for school attendance. We don't have that discretion either. In the event that the vaccine became a required vaccination, that would have to come from the New York State Department of Health. And that has not been a topic of discussion at all, really, between our conversations with the state and our conversations with our county as of this point. So I wouldn't want to speculate what we would do if that were to occur. We haven't really been part of any conversations about that happening. And so it is not currently a requirement to be enrolled in a school, such as measles, mumps, and rubella. Those kinds of vaccinations are required. And there's been really no conversation to any level regarding making it such.
What if? I'm saying sports too. I was told that you had this for winter sports. That's true. I'd love to dismiss that.
I can't really address with any level of certainty what we would do regarding enrollment in school. We would follow whatever state requirements we're required to follow. And at this point, it's not a state requirement. In regard to your question regarding winter high-risk sports, we did make a determination after a lot of discussion. There were 2 or 3 board meetings at which this topic was discussed. And the majority of the board agreed with my recommendation that we require the students who are participating in higher risk sports to be vaccinated for the winter season. That was done based on a CDC recommendation and guidance that when your community has a substantial risk infection rate spread, you ought to either cancel high-risk sports or ensure that all participants are vaccinated. That requirement also came out in the New York State Department of Health regulations. And so some districts like us approve that. We are not anticipating doing that for spring sports because spring sports will be outdoors. That did turn out to be a favorable decision in terms of keeping our participation going over the winter. And one other thing I will also address regarding the masks and the vaccines, I have read some commentary on social media that schools were implementing the mask mandate because we were concerned about federal or state aid. There is no requirement tied to any school funding, whether that be state funding or federal funding related to the masks. The masks is separate from any funding. It is not integrated in any funding requirements. We receive the state aid that we are entitled to receive by formula. We receive the federal grants that we are entitled to receive by the guidelines that are created. There are no guidelines associated with money being tied to schools for the masks requirement.
All right.
I just got a question on that real quick. So if there's nothing money tied towards the decision of mask mandate, so just to say if this board was majority or yourself, a majority that said we aren't about the mask, we want it to be a choice for parents to mask their kid if they want to come to school, they feel that's the safest option. So if you guys said, you know, we're going to pass a resolution and say our school board decides that we want to make it a parent's choice to send their child to school with a mask, that wouldn't affect the school in any way whatsoever. It would allow a choice at that point. Is that correct? No repercussions to the school or yourself?
Not that I know of at this time. However, we do not, again, just to reiterate, the Board of Education does not have the authority to do that. The State Education Department would have to give the authority to the board to have that mask requirement be a local decision. And at this point is a state mandate.
I get that. I'm just saying that the board could put the pressure and allow a voice for the school and the parents to go to the school board or state education department and say, hey, our constituents are more about the choice. We want to pass a resolution and say, hey, our school is about that choice because of what our taxpayers and such would like. We want to pass a resolution to say we are on board with that decision if the state would allow it. Instead of just falling in line with these mandates that just continue to come because of the power grab, where is the voice for the people who don't want to wear a mask or get vaccines? Where there's no way around it. You guys,
Well, I would go back to Mr. Dunn's comment that, you know, the authorities that are best able to address the concerns of those parents that do not want their children to wear masks in school would be the state legislature and the governor. So to support what Mr. Dunn is saying, if you or any other parents want to express your views regarding this issue, right now, that decision-making responsibility and authority is with the state legislature and the governor.
Okay. Well, if you're gonna, this is not a debate back and forth. I appreciate your comments. If you want to make a comment, you can come to the microphone. We'll just, can you introduce yourself and ask the question then?
I live in Olcott Estate. My children started attending the school district last year, so we're fairly new. But my comment was moving beyond the whole mask situation and kind of back to the vaccination, seeing how many breakthrough cases we had in the last month or so and the increase in them. And we see that vaccinated and unvaccinated people are both getting COVID. Is there a plan to revisit that discussion with the Department of Health and whoever else you need to revisit it with to say, you know what, there really isn't enough evidence to support us choosing to continue to have our children be vaccinated for sports. Like, I'm just trying to find like a go forward approach. Like, what is the plan there to kind of keep in contact and maybe revisit the situation and say, all right, the decision we made before is maybe not valid anymore, or is not proven to be, the case, and how can we change that and better the lives for our children?
I guess I'm trying to understand. So are you talking about the sports piece or just?
Yeah, right now it's just the sport piece, right? Because he already addressed the fact that it's not going to be required for the children to participate in school, right? To go to school going. So that's not a
Right,
concern
right.
of mine. It's more, I kept my children out of high risk sports for the winter because of the vaccination reason. And I'd like for them to be able to participate in those things. But I can't because of the requirements. So is there a plan to regroup with the Department of Health and the folks from the state to kind of say, okay, based on the data that we've been seeing for the last 2 months and the increase in cases, and it's not just unvaccinated people or students or adults, it's everybody. Is there a better way to approach this situation?
Oh, Kathleen, you want to respond?
Yeah, actually, I would like to respond. When we made that decision, it was a decision for the one season only. And that was the conversation that we had at the time. And it wasn't a decision that was made lightly. There was quite a bit of discussion. And we were looking at the data at that time. And because things with this have changed so much and are always changing, I don't think we can say right now that, at a future time, we're definitely going to do this or we're definitely going to do that. Because as a board, we are very good about looking at the data, looking at what's going on, and having a discussion. And they can be, we don't agree. We don't always agree. But it is something that we will discuss, and we will look at what's happening at that moment. The reason we made the decision in September is because if we were going to put it in place, is we had to give students who weren't vaccinated yet time to get vaccinated if they felt that they wanted to do that in order to play the sport. So that's why we made the decision then. And again, it was based on the data that we had at the time.
And was that just for this fiscal school year?
Yes.
So moving forward, so going from winter sports into spring sports, so that's going to be revisited before the next fiscal year school season starts.
Excuse me, who's behind, who is that?
We need your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shauna Edwards. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Shauna Edwards, I apologize. Shauna Edwards. So my question was, my daughter did not participate in high contact sports because she's not vaccinated. We're not comfortable with that. So again, that was a huge hinder for her, something that she watched her brother do her whole life. She's been doing it for the last 4 years. It was a big hit for her not to be able to participate in a sport that she has grown to love. So that was my biggest question was, it's hard. You have teenage kids, and when you're not comfortable as a parent, you don't know what this is going to show up for 10, 15, 25 years from now in our bodies. So, having that conversation with your children, they're home for 1.5 years. They're part-time schools. Their faces are masked. They don't get to see their friends smile. And then you're taking, the sports, which I understand, right? Like, I understand you are relying on the data and you're relying on the facts that are in front of you. So my question is, moving forward, when you're looking at the cases, you're looking at Albany Med, 183 people were hospitalized, fantastic. None of them were on vents, but 50% of them were vaccinated. So the vaccination at this point in time, whether you're double vaxxed and boosted, isn't stopping the spread or the cause. So that was my biggest question was it just for this fiscal school year? Is it something that when are you going to revisit? Are the parents going to have any input on it? Or is it just going to be a decision made by you?
Well, again, the recommendation that I will make for the spring sports season of this year is that we do not have a vaccination requirement.
For any sports or?
Any sports.
Okay.
Okay. The decision regarding what might happen next year would be based on the consultation that we've been doing ongoing with the county health department, with the state health department, and whatever guidance or regulations are in at that time. My hope would be, as everyone's it would be, is that we will not be under the current situation with COVID-19, and we will have few, if any, protocols that we will
Mhm.
have to either mandate or make a choice about. That will be based on the decision at the time, the guidance that's provided to the schools at the time, and the data. And we would figure out to what degree we have discretion in these various matters, and we would try to make the best choice that we can for the community, and particularly our students. And we would follow a similar process in which we would have public board meetings and where these issues were discussed.
Yep.
And opportunities for public comment, including from the parents.
Now, my question is this, because I don't know if I've read this someplace else, but not all school districts had required the vaccine mandate for contact sports.
That is correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
so based on same area, different school districts, what was it in East Greenbush that outweighed what the other school districts are doing that required that vaccine mandate?
7 districts in our league, the Suburban Council,
Yep.
did implement a vaccination
Okay.
requirement. And it was a decision that we made that we felt was in the best interest of the safety and health of our students. And we did have local discretion regarding that decision to some degree. And we interpreted the state guidance and the CDC guidance literally that said that we would have to cancel those activities or shift to virtual unless we could assure that all of the participants were vaccinated. And there was a discussion and debate about it. The majority of the board supported it. It wasn't a unanimous decision. There was a lot of discussion and debate regarding it, and we passed it, believing that it was in the best interest of our students.
And did we compete with any of the areas in contact sports that were not vaccine required?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, that will, more to come, and stay tuned on different changes. We'll see how things roll out. Appreciate your comments. And again, if you want to revisit what we talked about, all our board meetings are posted. They're video, they're streamed. You can see the information that we went through. The several board meetings we talked about this and the data we collected, because we don't take these decisions lightly. Okay. So that will move from our public forum to the next order of business, and we have reports and presentations of the superintendent of schools.
Yes, Mr. Buno, I lost my agenda on
Okay.
Google, so if you can just remind me what the first presentation is.
It's going to be the summary of the college credits and advanced
good.
placement earned.
Excellent, thank you. So one of the things that the district has been doing over the course of the last several years is expanding the opportunities for students to take college credit courses while in high school. That, in combination with some other things that we've been doing to encourage students to really think about what they want to do after graduation, including those students that don't want to go to college. We have been tracking the data to make sure that we know how many kids are participating in these courses, what we can do to continue to develop agreements with the colleges and the universities to provide opportunities for the students. And Mr. McHugh is going to give a presentation that shows you what we offer, but also the number of students who have graduated from Columbia High School over the last few years with a significant number of college credits that in some cases transfer into the schools that they choose to attend, and in other cases benefit them because they are better prepared for college by taking college level work in the high school. Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. Let Mr. Goodwin pull the slides up. So this is a summary of our college credits and advanced placement over the last 4 years.
Too far away.
So the data reflects the total number of college credits that have been earned by our Columbia High School graduates over the last 4 years. This particular data does not include any college credits that may have been earned by taking an advanced placement course at Columbia, unless that advanced placement was also a dual credit course, meaning it was an AP course that was also approved for college credit through one of our colleges or university. The rationale for sorting our data in this manner and excluding AP courses it involves one of the biggest perks of AP classes that you can get college credit as long as you score well on the AP exam at the end of the semester. Many colleges accept a score of a 4 or a 5 on an AP exam as college credit in that subject area. In some cases, even some colleges and universities will accept a 3 for college credit. But in order to get college credit for AP scores, the student has to request that the College Board send their official score report to the college of their choice. So one college or university may accept that AP course for college credit. Another college or university may not accept that. So after receiving their scores, the college notifies the students about any credit, advanced placement, or course exemptions that they may have earned by reviewing the student transcript. So simply stated, East Greenbush Central School District does not necessarily know if the colleges that our graduates attend accepted their AP courses or not. So we really can't capture that information. In regards to what we do know, 759 out of our 1,287 Columbia High School students from the graduating classes of 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021 earned at least 3 college credits. So that's about 59% of our students earned college credit during their 4 years at the high school. A total of 4,497 college credits have been earned by our graduates over the last 4 years. We currently have no way to know exactly how many of those credits were accepted by colleges. So the Times Union just recently ran an article. It kind of shed some negative light a little bit on college courses, but I'm going to speak to that a little bit. According to the 2017 report from the Federal Government Accountability Office, about 43% of college credits that were earned in high school are lost. So they didn't get accepted, but there's some positive sides to that too, and that's just a note of being transparent. So we talk a lot about educating our students, educating our parents, helping them understand the process. Most colleges require students to take all of their courses at the college or university. It is a business, and that's another part of being transparent, right? The more courses that they're going to take at that college or university, the longer that the student is enrolled at their college. A 4-year summary of the college credits earned by our students, total credits earned, it's broken down by each year. Underneath it is the enrollment. So if you look at 2017, 2018, 802 college credits were earned, 323 students were in that graduating cohort. It increases each year, 1,041 in 2018, 2019, 1,006, and then last year, 1,648. Part of that is that we've added more courses for college credit in our program of studies. Next slide, Peter. So we do know who these students are, but this will just give you an example. If we looked at our top 10 recent Columbia graduates that graduated with the most college credits out of Columbia High School, and this is excluding AP, so I would envision that there's additional college credits added to what we're seeing. But over the last 4 years, we've had a student actually graduate with 35 college credits. So you see 35, 28, all the way down to 19. And just a reminder, the average credits earned in one semester is 15. So that's pretty impressive. So we know that not all colleges and universities are accepting these college credits. However, when you think about how competitive that process is, the SAT, the ACT, and the ACT, the board scores, there's a lot of colleges that really don't rely on those board scores as much as they rely on making sure that the students challenge themselves while in high school. So colleges and universities quite often ask for our program of studies. They want to see those upper level courses, and they want to see that students challenge themselves and attempted those courses. Courses at Columbia High School that have college credit attached to it, and I'll talk about this a little bit with the current enrollment. So you see how many students are currently enrolled in those classes in the red. This is important, and this is a really good example. If you look under career and technical education, we have 7 courses that run under career and technical education that have college credit attached to them. The majority of those courses are business courses. So for a student that is going into a business major, those credits are much more likely to carry over into the college. So if students took these courses, business college credit courses, and they want to major in environmental science, the likelihood that those courses are going to carry over and go to college is slim. So if they're going to go into a business field, these courses are much more likely to be transferable. The English class that we have is Introduction to Literature, and that's through Siena College. For a lot of our students that take that course, and this year we have 42 students, 18 in the first semester, 24 in the second semester. That meets the freshman English requirement for a lot of colleges and universities. But again, it's dependent upon the grade that they score in the course while they're enrolled in high school. If you look at our foreign language courses, our level 3, level 4, and level 5 world language courses all have college credit attached to them. When you look at the current enrollment, just to clarify, for example, French 3 has six students taking college credit. That doesn't mean that there's only 6 students in that class. There could be 18, 20, 22 students in that class, but 6 of them paid and enrolled in that college credit course to get college credit for the course. Maybe not all of the students signed up for college credit. The next slide, mathematics. Again, some of these courses might fulfill that minimum freshman requirement. Statistics, and I'll just talk a little bit about that. In the past, Nancy Van Oort has partnered with IBM. So people from IBM have worked alongside Nancy Van Oort in statistics. And really, another point that I want to make is that if I back the time up to my college days, I'm not going to say how long ago that was, but one of the challenges for people to be successful at the collegiate level was writing. There were a lot of writing labs, and the students could get assistance for writing. One of the biggest obstacles and challenges for college completion right now is the ability to pass the minimum requirement in mathematics, and that is heavily statistics based. So, again, educating and informing parents, letting parents know that statistics is a course that is really important and worth taking. Currently, there's 24 students in there, but you can see the math courses. It is quite unique and impressive that we do have a music course in our program of studies, as well as an art class in our program of studies that has college credit attached to it. Those could carry over too for somebody to get their arts credit at a college level. Science and social studies, another really big hit is the introduction to psychology. Quite often that's a transferable credit. So if the student's passing that course while in high school, that is a course that most colleges and universities will accept. And new this year is Introduction to the Analysis of Public Policy. So that is our senior level participation in government class. So PIG, as we know it, still exists, but we also run some sections that have college credit attached to it. 37 students enrolled in that this year. When we go on to advanced placement, the data listed below is based on information reported by the New York school districts to the U.S. Department of Education Civil Rights Data Collection for 2017, 2018. So that's just the reference point of the data that we're going to refer to. 82% of school districts in New York State offer at least one advanced placement course. The average number of advanced placements that high schools in New York State run is 10.6. We run 14, and I'll show you those courses. The average overall student enrollment in AP classes is about 19%. And I just put that last fact about just caution and awareness. There is disparity in opportunity. And really what I mean is the wealthier the school district, you typically see more advanced placement courses running. So it does have that poverty factor. And in some of the schools that really struggle financially, lower income, you'll see less AP classes actually running. This is the number of AP courses taken by our Columbia High School, which resulted in a score of 3 to 5. So, you can see 2017, 284, 337, 302, 263, 255. You could ask the question, did COVID have any impact on that in a virtual or a hybrid format? It may have impacted that a little bit. Next slide, Peter. And this is just some facts over the last 5 years. 1,709 advanced placement courses were taken by Columbia High School students. Over the last 5 years, 1,441 advanced placement courses were taken by Columbia High School students that resulted in at least a score of 3 or higher. So we have an 85% passing rate. That's really an important statistic. Our process, we want our kids, there's always that fine line. We want our kids to challenge themselves. So, you know, a student that wants to sign up for an AP course, wants to sign up for a college credit course, we want to support that. We want students challenging themselves.
What grade do they start doing the screening for advanced?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, going into, sometimes students will take an AP course junior year, senior year, and our same with our college credit courses. So kids can start enrolling in those courses. 642 students have taken at least one AP class over the last 5 years. So that's about 40% of our students. The next slide shows our AP classes that we run. It also shows the current enrollment this year. So these have potential credit, right? And that is dependent upon that final AP score, where they apply to college, and whether or not they accept that. But those are the courses we take. Some closing remarks on the last couple of slides, you know, and this is really goes hand in hand with the report that the Times Union released about a week ago. The successful passing of an AP or college credit course is a significant indicator of college and career readiness. So, you know, we talk about both college and career readiness students that have challenged themselves academically. You know, that's an applicable skill, right? Dealing with that higher level of rigor, whether you're going to college or whether you're going into the workforce, a good experience. 74% of New York State districts offer college credit dual enrollment courses. Earning college credit while in high school can save students money and get them on track to earn college credits while working towards graduation. I'll give you a personal example. My son, who recently graduated, had 12 college credits in business, and all 12 credits carried over because he was a business major. So that's almost a semester. If he can get out of a 4-year college in 3.5 years, I'll be a happy father. Some students shy away from taking AP courses because they're afraid they won't pass the exam. So that's always part of the process. It's what our counselors are encouraging our students to challenge themselves. Advanced placement level courses are critical for students to reach their potential. The last slide, because every university makes its own decisions about how credits will transfer, it's really incumbent upon every prospective student and parent to do their research on the university and the college that they're thinking about applying to. So, you know, how do the credits transfer? What's transferable? What's not transferable? Those are really important conversations to have. And I made that example right at the beginning. You know, those business courses are probably not going to transfer if you're in a major outside of the business field. So college readiness is largely determined by the following, and this is important. Colleges are looking at class rank. They're looking at your program of studies. They're looking at the coursework a student engaged in. They look at the grade point average, and they do look at the ACT and the SAT score, but it's not as heavily weighed as it was in the past. And again, taking college courses in high school can boost your college admission chances, give you inexpensive college credit. You know, that it tells a lot that you're a serious student, you're motivated, you're willing to challenge yourself. So any questions regarding college credit and AP courses?
Board members, questions?
I have one quick question. So you said sometimes they take it, but they choose not to take the exam, right? And get the credit. Is there a reason why? Have we dug into that? Is that a financial impact?
So our administrators do a really good job, and for students that may not be able to afford, so the college credits are, when we talk about the college credit courses,
Yeah.
they're fairly inexpensive. The one that is through Syracuse University, that is one of our more expensive courses. But our principals know our students, our counselors know our students, And we've worked with organizations like our Southern Rensselaer County Rotary. So, Mr. Harkin does a good job. If there's a student that has the ability to get those credits and it's a financial issue, our administrators and our guidance department does a pretty good job of getting kids secured. Sometimes kids don't take the AP just because there's so many unknowns. You got to get the 3, 4, or 5, and depending upon where you apply, some colleges may not accept the 3. They may only accept that 4 or 5. So, some pay. There's a lot of reminders that go out. I believe I dropped the check off at the front door on the last day of AP exams. So there's a lot of factors involved in that. But sometimes students are a little intimidated to take that AP course. Some have a full high school course, and it's filled with AP and college level courses, and sometimes that's a little too much. So there's a lot of factors that go.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Any other board members, I think? Comment? Jennifer?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment. Thank you for this. I think it shows really well all the opportunities the students have, whether they're going to a 2-year, 4-year, or right into a career path. The only comment I would make is they also have the opportunity, if they participate in other like New Visions programs too, through Columbia.
Great.
I know my daughter is, I think, going to have 12 credits alone from a New Visions program. So there's so many opportunities for these kids.
Mhm. Thanks, Jennifer. Kathleen?
The one comment I would make, and again, thank you, Jim, this is great. Because every university makes its own decisions, the only problem you kind of run into there is a lot of times the kids start taking these classes before they have any idea where they're going to go. But as I explained to my kids, education is not wasted. So even if they don't actually get the credit, personal experience, I had a son that was very big into history, took all the APs in history, got a 5 on all of them. And I don't think his college accepted any of them to actually for credit, but it moved him into other opportunities within the programs. So like I said, it's never wasted. It just may present itself differently.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin was just talking to me about that, almost as valuable, right? A student thinks they want to do something, they take that first college credit and realize they don't want to do that.
Mhm.
That's good to
You
know, too.
know, that's pretty valuable too, right? So, when they track college graduation, they track it for 6 years. So even a 2-year college or a 4-year college, and I know I'm confident that Mr. Simons did a good job presenting the slides last week while I was home on our National Student Clearinghouse data. But don't forget, we made a big emphasis to really expose students to the workforce. And there are a lot of programs that aren't necessarily a 2-year college program or a 4-year college program. Some are 12 months, some are 18 months. So that's impacted some of that data as well. It's a different world out there as far as workforce demands. But thank you.
Thanks, Jim. The comment I have is the program of studies is very robust at Columbia. The program of studies is very robust at Columbia. And I like that you mentioned career and technical education. One of the board's goals has always been to not only just address the needs of college, but also careers. And through, as Jennifer said, New Visions programs, through career and technical education programs, through Questar BOCES, a lot of those programs also have college credits attached to them that they can take on to a 2 or 4-year college in the career of choice. So very pleased to see the participation and also the variety of opportunities for our students as they get into their high school years to take that path that they choose to and save their parents a little bit of money. So, okay. Thank you. Cheryl?
Do all the kids that want to take AP courses get in an AP course now? Do any kids that want to take an AP course, are they able to get into the AP course?
Oh, so you're asking if every student that wants to enroll in an AP course can get in that AP course?
Now, because I know they couldn't several years ago.
Yeah, so there is still criteria that is set, but then there's always the wiggle room. There's always that individual review look. There's a fine line in there, right? We really want our students to challenge themselves academically. So, an example is that we pre-test our students in the English Readiness exam. So we want to know, we test them early. We'll hit them in January because we want to know which students we need to focus on for June. But impacts our data. So when you look at our passing rate, it's taking into the fact that we're testing early. So I only make that point because the data is public, right? And it's getting pushed out and people see that data. So there is some criteria set. It's reviewed regularly, but students that may not meet that criteria, there's times where there is some space for students and we allow them to challenge themselves. So that's a complicated question and I'm not trying to avoid it. Sometimes we'll have 2 sections of an AP, a particular AP class run, and we have some contractual obligations that, we can put 54 students in there. So that sometimes impacts that as well. So.
Joanne?
McHugh, I want to commend you on the growth of the number of courses, especially in the business department over the past few years. It's been a huge growth and our kids definitely will benefit from that. If opportunity presents itself, I'd like to see more growth in the science field, especially in the medical field. With kids going in and having years and years of education ahead of them, the more we can help them at the high school level, the more benefit to them.
John?
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor.
Just circling back, we offer a lot and there's a lot of diversity in what we offer and what the value is. And I think we all agree that any form of advancement is valuable. What I would like to discuss at some point is how can we make the connection better with families and parents on what we're offering and what potential direction they have to go in. I know myself, I've long since paid the college bills of my children, took those opportunities at Columbia, but none of it worked, only as additional credits, but not towards their major because of the school selection. So I think it's really important as we offer these programs that we make sure that our constituency understands that message that yes, one, the value of advancement is speaks for itself. But if you're looking for that economic value, that they need that information earlier in the school career, so that if you're going to a state school or you're going to, we've partnered with a lot of schools and make that information available easier, I think, to parents. I think one of the ways as we move forward is embracing technology to communicate to our families what the options are and what's our logic behind those options, rather than just meeting with a counselor when you're a junior saying, okay, what do you want to do? Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't think a lot of us did. And so if we could address that at some point in time to try to improve that, I would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, right along with what you said is that the boss to the left of me asked me to work with our communication specialist after this was presented to the board, along with our National Student Clearinghouse data, to work with Mark Adam to get some stories written out on the web, pushed out, to really get our parents to really understand what's going on and what those opportunities are. So
I think it's really good that we do these types of things, because when people have an expectation and then their expectation isn't met in a manner that they think, then it creates further issue for us. And I think that the more information we put out there in a fashion that's very clear and concise, and that they understand that these are what we're offering and this is the direction we're trying to go in. So thank you.
I agree.
Thanks, John.
And Jim, just one more thing. Like, I've heard in the past that this could impact financial aid eligibility as the student goes into college. And we can't give that advice, but just something that, if that's accurate, these parents need to be aware of.
Yeah, I've never heard that, and I've never encountered that. And I've got two that have gone through it, and one that's in it right now. But I've not heard that.
Yeah, I've heard, just rumor has it. And going through it now with my daughter, I agree with what John said. I'm still confused, and I have to keep asking her, what does that mean? What's the difference between that one and that one? So whatever we can do to improve that communication would be a huge help, I think, for any of the either middle school or high school.
Yeah, we are working on that. So I appreciate that feedback, and I think that's on our radar. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next presentation.
One real quick.
Oh,
The financial aid piece is if a student working in a college, what I have heard is if a student has failed a college course before, that can impact their financial aid. I don't know what that means with college and high school. So that could be a question for someone, but I do know that that is a financial aid thing at the colleges.
thank you, Kathleen. Okay, moving on to our next presentation on course failures. One of the things that the board did talk to the administration about was really as we monitor what's happened through COVID and what are, making sure that we're following our students and providing them support. So, Mr. Simons?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Buno. The district about 3 years ago started the process of aligning some of our goals with some of the academic data that we were seeing. It became a heightened concern regarding course failures as we tried to monitor and assess the impact of the limitations of the hybrid program last year, as well as how kids are doing and progressing this year. So last year, we started the process of reporting out the course failure rates at the middle school and the high school with an objective to measure how kids are doing. Secondly, to put interventions in place. And through our federal grants that were provided to the district this year, our board supported many interventions, including additional social work support for students who need help, some smaller class sizes for students that need help transitioning to the middle school. Tutoring is available 3 days a week after school at our middle school and our high school that is provided by the district at no cost to the student or the family. And so part of looking at this data is to measure not only how well kids are doing, but to make sure that those students that are not yet passing all their courses can access those support programs and interventions that we have in place. So again, I gave Mr. McHugh a little bit of a breath, but I'm going to turn it back to Mr. McHugh to go over the presentation of the data. This is first quarter data at this time. And then I think Mr. Harkin and Mrs. Barker, principals of the high school and the middle school respectively, are going to add some information about what they're doing to address this data. Mr. McHugh?
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Well, Mr. Goodwin's pulling it up. I just want to thank Todd Witherall, who is here tonight. I probably call his office probably about 8 times a day, and he still answers. So I'm always asking him for data points and data sets, and I just want to publicly thank him. So this is our Q1 course failures for the school year 2021-22. First slide. So we'll look at Columbia High School, and I just want to start by saying everything starts with awareness, right? So if you're not pulling the data and you're not looking at it, you just continue to do what you've always done. So it starts with really challenging yourselves, really pulling up the data and taking a look at it and being honest with it. So, making sure that people are aware of the data, and then really making sure we respond appropriately to the data. So Q1, it started September 9th. It ended November 5th. We'll do this again for the second quarter. But total course failures in Q1, grades 9 through 12, there were 488 course failures. Just to be mindful, there's 1,274 students. There's an 8-period day. Most students take 7 classes. We have quite a few that have a full academic schedule and don't even take a lunch. So when we look at those failures, 488, we break it down and we realize that it was 138 students that accounted for those 488 course failures. So there's about 10% of our courses resulted in a failing, or 10% of our students. However, 89.2% of our students, and I really don't want to lose sight of that, passed all of their courses in the first quarter. So you think about the challenges that our students face, hybrid, being remote at times, and we had almost 90% of our students at the high school passed all of their courses. So 44, we break that 138 students down. 44 of those students failed 2 classes. 29 of those students failed 3 classes. 14 of those students failed 4 classes. 10 of the students failed 5. 6 of the students failed 6 classes, and we had 4 students that failed 7 classes. So we know who the students are, and that's important, right? To really identify who the students are. We break this data down, by subject, by department, by teacher, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But here's our course failures by grade level. So you see the grade to the left. You see the total student enrollment at that grade level, and then you see the number of students at each grade level that failed 1, 2, 3. If you go on to the next slide, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we know what the grade levels are. We know who the students are. The next slide, Peter. And then, this is by academic department. So this is where the failing grades landed. Just to be mindful that it's important to consider the number of students who take a class within each of the departments. So for the most part, every student in the school is taking a math class. Every student in the school is taking a social studies class. They're taking an English class. Phys ed is a requirement. They're taking a science class. So when you look at some of the others, like world languages, art, we even include VOTEC, health, music. Not every student in the high school is actually taking a class within that department. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Harkin. These are some of the intervention strategies and steps that have been taken to address course failures at Columbia High School.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. As Mr. Simon said, we do have after-school tutoring. So we have after-school tutoring every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 2:15 to 3:15, and that's open to all students. We obviously use the list that Mr. McHugh provided to meet the original students and enroll them in it. They stay after for an hour. We have every single subject, foreign language, the four core classes. With the appointment of the wellness coordinator, we can make up PE classes. So students stay for an hour, and then they take the late bus home at 3:30. So that's what worked really well. We had a lot in December. We're down to about 40 regular right now, but we plan to send a flyer out with the report cards that will be going out next week, reminding parents of this opportunity, and we hope to gather some more. We have the opportunity to probably host 100 a day, and we'd like to see those 100 kids that are failing come in. The other thing that we've done is our LRCs. Right back here is our math LRC, as you can see, and in that room over there is our English LRC. Our math LRC is full every period. It's open before school, after school. This week alone, because of midterms, there's 20 kids a day in there looking to get extra help as they get ready for their midterm. One of the things that we talked about with the English LRC is we're not seeing the same numbers. So we're going to rebrand it as the writing lab, because you're writing every subject. And I think kids are thinking that unless I have English homework, I shouldn't go to the English LRC. But as we know, we write in every subject. So we're going to try to call it the writing lab. So kids that have to do a science lab, kids that have a social studies essay, an English assignment can come down and use that. We have a great teacher in there, and Mr. Kelly is really excited to try that. So we're going to rebrand that on Monday and call that our writing lab. Apex is our credit recovery program that we do online. Traditionally, we wait till the end of the year to start Apex, but for our seniors that fail the first quarter class, and it's a semester class, we had them immediately Apex to make the credit up. A lot of seniors will say, oh, I know I didn't do well this quarter, but I'll do better in the second quarter, and I'll get that 50 up, and I'll get my 65, and I'll move on. So we met with parents and seniors, and we had them immediately enroll in Apex, so they recovered quarter one already. So right now, they need to pass quarter two, they'll get their credit, and they'll get ready to move on for graduation. We don't want any seniors to not be able to graduate. And our juniors and seniors have really been impacted the most right now in the high school by the pandemic with their learning styles and their commitment to learning. So we're really staying on top of them. Our attendance committee meets every Tuesday morning, and we review kids that have been out. This excludes kids that are out for quarantine. We look at kids that are just missing 2 days or more. Anyone that misses 2 days from 1 week to the next is automatically flagged and contacted by a principal or guidance counselor or our school social worker, Mel Tremblay, who's our district-wide coordinator. She'll go out to a house, make a home visit if they don't respond to a phone call or an email from an administrator. So that's worked out really well. We've made some good connections, and we've set up some pins and things in place to support those kids who just aren't coming to school and reluctant to come back. Our homework help center, which is formerly the old guitar room located in the Sunshine Hallway, is a quiet place that we have for kids to go up and do homework during their lunches. If they're in lunch, a lunch is 45 minutes. A lot of kids get down there and eat within 5 or 10. They want to go do homework. We have a TA up there that will support them. We have computers with a printer, so they'll go up and they'll do their work, and it gives them an opportunity to sit somewhere quiet and do stuff. We're also using it this week for midterms. It allows students another spot to go sit quietly and take their midterm. We're really excited. It was kind of piecemealed for the first couple months, but with the addition of a 0.4 PE teacher, we've been able to have that person half-time, and he's got it open for 6 periods a day. And we plan to find a way to cover it with the other 3 with our existing staff. So we're excited to have that open 8 periods a day, starting on Monday as well. And then finally, we've had a lot of parent meetings. As you know, last year, visiting the building was difficult because of the pandemic and coming in. But now that we are back and the building is open, we're encouraging parents to come in. They're meeting with us. They're meeting with their counselors. And I think that face-to-face meeting is needed so that they can understand that we're all working towards the same goal. And those have been really productive. And that leads to kids coming on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays and getting the tutoring that they need. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a couple of things to go along with what Mike has spoken about. Mr. Harkin and his administrative team have taken some of those students, when we look at the students that have course failures, and we've looked at their schedule, and we may notice that they have a study hall 3rd period, they have a study hall 6th period. We have kind of reassigned their study hall to the LRC. So we haven't given them the option. So the LRC is open. A lot of times those students that really are engaged and want to do well, they're the ones that'll come to the LRC. So we have kind of encouraged kids to not have the option of going to the LRC. We've required it. So instead of going to the 3rd period study hall, you're to report to the math LRC. That's helped quite a bit. The other 2 points that I want to make, one is that we talk a lot about, you know, after the impact of COVID, what are we going to do? And we talk about identifying priority standards and what content's the important content. At the high school, they don't have that luxury, especially with Regents level courses. So everything in the content and the curriculum is important because it supports that Regents exam. So that's a challenge. Like in the elementary, we can weed out a few things and say, let's get these kids back on target. The high school is under that pressure of having that Regents exam at the end. That's a unique challenge. The last point I want to make is that just to be honest and be transparent again, the impact of COVID in a hybrid model is evident. Students developed some bad habits, sleeping in, a little lazy, getting back into that routine, being in-person learning. And that's why I really applaud the board that was a priority to keep us open. That is critical because we've had this whole first part of the year to get kids back in the routine. Get up. It's a real life thing, right? Whether they go to college or they go into the workforce, you need to get up, you need to be on time, and you need to be prepared. So it has taken this time since September to really get kids back in that routine. And it is the kids, when you look at, you know, you have 4 kids that are failing 7 courses, that means that they're failing every course. That is directly related to chronic absenteeism. Either they're just not coming to school. So we're working on getting them engaged. There's the mental health component. There's something else going on that's preventing them to come to school. So we are utilizing those resources and those support services to really help our students. If you go into our departments know the students that are struggling academically, and that's part of those department meetings, or how are we going to get these kids through. So there's a lot going on. When we look at our middle school, our Q1, again, same time frame, September 9th to November 5th. Total course failures, Q1 for grades 6 through 8. Total student enrollment was 944. Total course failures were 95. So it's about 10% of our students. It's broken down by grade level, but again, 90% of our students at Goff passed all courses. So again, that's very important. Then we start to look at the grade level and the subject areas where these course failures are occurring. So we break it down by ELA, English, mathematics, science, social studies, and other. Other could be health. It could be a world language. It could be one of our CTE courses. So we look to see where these failures are occurring. And just Mrs. Barker will speak to some of the things that they did responding to this first quarter data.
Thank you. Good evening. Like the high school, we also have implemented a 3-day-a-week after-school tutoring program. And at this point in time, we have students are about 35 students on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays on average are attending that after-school tutoring program. So we're providing additional assistance to students who are struggling academically, and that's proven to be very, very effective. We also have taken an opportunity to look at individual cases of students where they have maybe been quarantined, then got COVID, and then ended up being out of school for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks at a time, and have fallen behind and have not been able to attend in-person school. So we've provided some tutoring opportunities for those students to get them back up to speed. And that's really been very helpful because, again, it's one thing to be remote, but if you're too sick to attend school remotely and you're missing in-person instruction, there is an opportunity for that student to get well behind. So we want to make sure that we're giving them every opportunity to have that one-to-one tutoring time to get back up to speed. We also are looking at we have team meetings every week. So on Tuesdays, our guidance counselors go to team meetings and we talk about students, and as teachers share with us students they're concerned about. And every Thursday, administration meets with all of the teams at each grade level and we talk about students. And so every week we're being made aware of what students are struggling. And at that point, we take a look at the reasons why. We also have IST, which is our instructional support team, and we talk about students in attendance every 2 weeks and review. We pull a list of attendance and we look at who's missing school, and what we look at their grades, and we then discuss the reasons why that might be happening. We do the same thing as the high school. We go visit the home. We have our guidance counselors or our social workers or our administrator or a resource officer and also Meryl Tremblay at times go out and visit homes and find out what is happening. So we're trying to work really closely with our parents and taking each situation individually to figure out what is the best course of action to get that student back up to speed. We have a situation in 8th grade where our students left school in March in 6th grade. They may not have attended school in 7th grade. They may have been remote. So 8th grade is the first time they're actually in school in person. So as I think everybody's mentioned here, that some students just it's taking them time to get back into routine, getting back into the expectations with rigor, and just really understanding how to be a student again. And so we are working with our students and trying to meet kids where they're at and demonstrating flexibility, but most importantly, providing them with the support services they need to get back up to speed. We also added an additional AIS provider in math, as well as in reading. And that additional staffing has allowed us to put more kids in AIS and give them their tier 2 interventions that they need to close those gaps that we're seeing academically. Socially, emotionally, we added to address those needs, we've added which can impact academics, obviously. We added an additional social worker, and that's been really helpful for us to kind of figure out, is it performance, is it academic, is it due to social emotional reasons why a kid might not be successful? So we've taken a team approach in looking at each kid's individually and their own situation individually, and trying to put the program that's best, that can best fit their needs. So overall, our kids are doing really well. The one thing that we have implemented again this year is midterms. They have not taken midterms in over 2 years. And the reason we're doing that is not necessarily it's not about the grade. It's more about getting them back up to speed with learning how to study for cumulative information and getting back into good study habits so that when they do go to high school, they're prepared to take a Regents exam that is cumulative in nature. So we are analyzing that data right now, but the initial look at how kids did with that midterm is pretty positive. Kids did very, very well. But again, it's more about just getting them back into good habits and teaching them study skills. So overall, I think all the services and supports that have been provided by the district have proven to be very beneficial and helpful for kids. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Barker. So, we will do the same thing for quarter 2. We'll summarize that data. We'll compare it to quarter 1. We'll see if some of the students are improving, and I'll provide you with an update at the end of quarter 2. Any comments or questions?
Michelle?
Jim, what do you think that relates to, or how does it relate, the 89% and success rate and the success rate of golf, to what we saw last year during full remote, and then what we saw maybe the year before that? So are we starting to jump back to a more normal process?
So complicated question. So when you talk about the levels, right? So, teachers prioritize their content, and that's easier to do in the lower levels than it is at the high school. All of it's important. It's all on that region. So, we are preparing for the regions. We were prepared for the January regions, and then it got canceled. So there's a tremendous impact there too. You think about our current juniors, they have not sat for a regents exam yet in their high school career. Okay. So you have a lot of different opinions about the regions. There's still something said about having a student have that pressure, deal with the pressure, and have to sit and take an exam that is at that length. So we are seeing some improvement. I think we did a great job of putting as many supports in place that we could for these students when they returned. We are seeing an uptick in behavior. We're addressing that. But all those things impact academic progress and academic growth. So if you're out on a suspension or we're having discipline issues, it's going to impact academic. It's going to impact learning. So we are continuing to address those things. When I look at data sets, I try to go back 5 years to compare it to a more normal time. We are starting to see that growth. I have to be honest. When I'm in meetings with counterparts, other school districts, I think we're doing pretty well. But I think it's because of the planning that went in place to return this year. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Great, thank you. Great
Thanks, Jim.
presentation.
John?
Just one quick comment. When we review this data for the next presentation, I think will give us a really good idea that if there's any immediate interventions that we might have to implement before the end of the school year, we might want to have that conversation as well to be ready to move, because I'm hoping that our interventions are working, but I'm still concerned about that small, even though it is a small segment, it's one that needs really intense work, and I don't want to miss that opportunity for them, especially in the 7th and 8th grades.
I appreciate that. The other thing I'm going to say, and again, is just being honest, is that when we have these attendance issues and chronic absenteeism, we used to be able to file a PINS, a person in need of supervision. We used to be able to call CPS and talk about education neglect. Those, you're not getting the same response. That responsibility has fallen upon school districts. So it is the school districts that are knocking on doors. And when we talk about the additional social worker that we hired, people don't want to answer the door when, sorry about this, but when there's a police officer knocking at the door. It is about relationship building, having your staff go out there, but we are doing those things. We are out, sitting in people's living rooms and in their kitchen trying to get kids back into school and get them the support services that they need.
Thank you, Jim. Any other final comments, board members? All right. The next part of our agenda is discussion items. We have 3 discussion items tonight. Our strategic plan is the first one. Mr. Simon, you want to kick that off?
Yes, for the last 5 years, our board and administration have worked together to put together a strategic plan that involves the board establishing goals and priorities that they would like the administration and the faculty and staff to address, and to report back to the board how we are doing at progressing towards those goals and priorities. A few years ago, a board member suggested that we have a scorecard, and a scorecard is typically a process that's used in private industry to measure the success of a private business. This particular scorecard process has proven to be very beneficial to our board, to our district administrators, and to our students and staff, because we are able to track how well we're doing, what we're doing, and to make mid-course corrections if necessary. So the last couple of years, because of COVID and the amount of resources and time that we've had to invest, we've started this process a little bit late. However, we believe it is an important process. It is an important priority, and we want to share the scorecard document with our board for discussion tonight. You can see from the document, I passed out a bigger document because as we work with the template on the screen, it's very, very difficult. If any member of the public wants to look at this document, and has questions, it will be up on our website tomorrow. And if you want to contact my office, if you have questions about any of these issues, we would be happy to answer them. The board's goals include, and this was the discussion that we had back in November and December, supporting and maintaining a safe and engaging school educational experience through diversity, equity, and inclusion. Second goal, and they're all of equal importance, ensuring effective and efficient delivery of human and fiscal resources. Third, ensuring progressive, innovative, and inclusive pathways for all students. That's where we talk about ensuring that those students that want to go on to college or want to go into the trades, that we have pathways for all of those students. And importantly, we want to have positive relationships and partnerships with our community and our families. So how we would like to approach this evening, and again, if anybody has any questions after this meeting and they would like to address them, we'd be happy to address them. Each of the members of the administration, our team, are going to highlight a couple of areas that we're working on. And again, this is in congruence with the board's goals. And I think I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Jim, then Marissa, then Linda. Okay. On the first page of the document, under safe, engaging school educational experiences, I want to highlight the work that we're doing in school safety. This has been a priority of the board for some time now. We have an active district safety committee, and on that committee, we have parents, we have administrators, we have support staff, and we have teachers. We are working collaboratively with the East Greenbush Police Department and other organizations to ensure that we are continuing to provide training for our students and our parents in some particular areas, including responding to school safety plans. There's a training called PRAISE. How do our students and our staff respond in the event that there was an emergency or some kind of a threat to the school? That is being put in place again for this year. This is ongoing training that we've continued to provide. At the initiative of our board member, board vice president, Mark Mann, we have petitioned the county and are working with the county legislature and other school districts to make sure that our students that are on the bus are transported safely. There is a high number of students who are on buses that come to our school district, but one of the issues that we're experiencing across the country is people that disregard the law that you're not supposed to pass a school bus when the stop arm is engaged. There is a program that the county legislature approved that would enable all of our buses to receive equipment to put a camera on that stop arm, to record anyone who passes a school bus, to provide an instant information and photo to law enforcement, and then the company handles the collection of the fines. That is a program that we've been discussing for a few years. It was a program that Mr. Mann participated in a workshop on at the school boards. He and I have been working together with the county. That at this point is been approved, and the county had a committee meeting this week to discuss what the next steps would be. Additionally, through our safety committee, we've been discussing vaping. We are seeing increases, as all school districts are, in the number of students that unfortunately are vaping. And we are bringing in workshops for our kids and our parents this year, but we are also investigating the technology that might be utilized in our high school, potentially our middle school, to detect use of vaping in our restrooms. We have been following up with Tom Grant, one of our county legislature. We have our high school safety team visiting Mahonison School District on January 28th, which is just a couple days away, to see how they're using the vaping technology, and we'll report back to the board. Secondly, we, on the same page, we've been discussing making sure that we educate the whole child, and some of the presentations that Mr. McHugh did tonight really address that. We want to make sure that our students not only are successful academically, but we take care of their social emotional wellness. I'm very happy that thanks to the efforts of Mrs. Wager, our Director of Business and Finance, and Molly McGrath, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, we have received approval from the county for the mental health clinic, satellite clinic, and that started this week. It is in place at the middle school and the high school, and we already have a caseload, existing caseload of students that are East Greenbush students that the county was providing mental health counseling to, and that will be available and accessible at the middle school 1 day a week and at the high school a second day of the week. We've had lots of professional development coordinated by Mr. McHugh in the area of emotional wellness for both students and staff. Additionally, I will highlight at the bottom of the page in the far column on the progress notes, the board supported the appointment of a wellness coordinator. That wellness coordinator is serving a number of over 125 students per day. He's not only working with the athletes, but he's helping to help those students that may need to pass physical education. Mr. Leonard has provided me with a report on this. He's also developed a plan to integrate nutrition, daily lifestyle habits, and he's also investigating some possible use and exploration of UAlbany's Athletic Performance Center. And that is an intervention program that the board supported. So those are two highlights from page one. One deals with school safety, the other deals with educating the whole child. If you turn to the fourth page, I just want to highlight one more that I think is critically important, and I have a slide on the board docs. Earlier, we talked about making sure that we focus on those students that want to explore the trades, those students that may want to go into a career and technical field. We have a high level of participation in our career and technical education programs at Questar. Each year and every year since we've been here, that enrollment has increased. In 2017-18, there were 39 students in career and technical education programs. Following year, there were 49. In 2019-20, 53. In 2020-21, 57. And currently, we have 59 students, a 20-student increase in career and technical education program participation over the last 5 years. So that was a priority of our board in terms of making sure that we weren't limiting students that might want that option. And the data suggests that many kids are taking advantage of that opportunities. I only have one more. Turning to the last page that deals with positive relationships and partnerships with our community. Thanks to the support of the board, we are continuing our Food for Families program. That program is being coordinated by a coordinator who is Audra DeBacco, our social worker. The number of families being served in the initial report I received in November was higher than it is now. Audra has provided me with some current data. We have about 6 regular families right now, and some of the organizations such as CEO that we work with that were providing us with some of the food. That program stopped in December, and Audra is working with Mr. Taylor, Steve Taylor, to identify some possible other resources for food such as Catholic Charities. But program is in place. If anybody needs access in November, the numbers were higher. But based on what Audra reported today, there are many families that were in a very hard situation who found employment and have indicated they no longer need the service. So those are my 3 highlights or 4 highlights, and I'll turn it over to Mr. McHugh.
I'll highlight 2 objectives on page 3 under ensuring progressive, innovative, and inclusive pathways for all students through academic and trade education excellence within our schools. The first one, the objective was to increase the percentage of students reading on or above grade level and meeting grade level learning standards in mathematics at the elementary level, providing evidence that the district is effectively addressing learning gaps through the implementation of early intervention and academic support programs. So some of the strategies that we're using, we're continually monitoring and responding to the universal screening data. We've implemented Renaissance STAR, K through 5, early literacy, reading, and mathematics. We have school-based data teams and instructional support teams, which each of our building principals facilitate. They're using that data. They're talking about that data. One of the things that has resulted from that is that our staffing, our faculty, is assigned based on student need. So that's a huge change in practice. So before, buildings were allocated 2.0 remedial teachers. Another building might be allocated 3 or 3.2. We are now taking our academic intervention service teachers, our remedial teachers, our early intervention teachers, and we're assigning them based on the universal screening data where the student needs are. So that's a big step in the right direction. The other thing is we are continually progress monitoring. So we are assessing these students, and now we are implementing interventions, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 interventions to address whatever deficit a student may have. But we are continually progress monitoring to make sure that the intervention that we're implementing is actually working. If it's not, we go back to that instructional support team, our school data team, and we discuss how we can modify that intervention. Maybe it's longer duration of time, or maybe it's something completely different. I do want to point out that the implementation of the RTI coordinator has been critical in the rollout of our new universal screener. So that was another successful step. And then the second one, increasing the number of students passing all courses in grades 6 through 12, reducing course failures through the implementation of academic intervention, tutoring, and after-school academic programs. So we presented tonight. We are monitoring and we're looking at those course failures. We're having some tough discussions. We're talking about our students that really need that additional support. So we'll continue to do that as well.
Any questions for Jim or anybody on the academic stuff? I just want to say that this is impressive because all the things that we talked about over the summer to plan for all this activity and to see that to get the update like this really shows what's being put in place to our community, that the funding that we did, the staffing that we did with Marissa's help and putting those folks in place really is impressive about to see that we're getting the data and we took a real strong stance on making sure that we're using data to all decisions, and it really shows that that was a great decision to move that direction, especially now.
Thank you, Mr. Buno. Okay. Appreciate that very much. Ms. Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Simons. The two areas that I will be talking about are on page 2 under the goal effective and efficient delivery of human and fiscal resources. Our first objective is to continue to strengthen our diverse recruitment processes, our hiring and employee retention procedures, and programs within all school departments. Our strategies are participating in regional recruitment opportunities at the college level. We are currently signed up to participate in the Clarkson University Capital Region campus mock interviews. Those are going to be scheduled for March 23rd and March 24th. Additionally, we are going to be attending the St. Rose Education Expo, and we're just waiting for those dates to be sent our way. And we continue to strengthen and build our relationships with local colleges in terms of making sure we have student teachers coming to our district and also student interns. The second objective is developing and implementing plans and initiatives to identify current and future personnel needs, addressing employee shortage areas, including transition plans for key leadership, both instructional and non-instructional. We've been tasked with analyzing compensation rates for a variety of different employee groups and then making adjustments if needed to remain competitive in our ever-changing market, and making sure that we're attracting the appropriate pool of candidates. If you recall, at the beginning of this year, our substitute teacher rate was $105 per day. Due to the impact of COVID-19 across the nation, we're seeing a shortage of substitute teachers. We went ahead and looked at the surrounding school districts to see what they were paying for substitutes. And we provided a recommendation to the Board of Education at a November meeting to raise that rate from $105 to $135 a day, and then $145 a day for retired teachers. We're very appreciative of that approval, and it has resulted in more applicants for substitutes applying and additional approved hires for substitute teachers across the board, K-12. In terms of our nurses have been going above and beyond this school year. Myself, Mrs. Wager, and Mr. Simons, we've met with our team of nurses and our SRP president to recognize all of their contributions that they've been making over these past several years. And we are looking into a point of care stipend right now for them. Additionally, we continue to recognize and face the challenges of bus driver shortages. I encourage you all to check out our bus driver recruitment video. It is on the top of our employment page, and our bus drivers are the stars of the show. So they did a really nice job in that recruitment video, and it has attracted more candidates. In December, we interviewed an additional 6 individuals. 2 of them are on their way to get that permit right now. And then lastly, we have a number of key leadership positions that we're recruiting for. So Mr. McHugh will be retiring at the end of June, and we'll be missing him very much. The posting for the assistant superintendent position just closed on the 21st. We have about 50 candidates, and Mr. Simons and I are in the process of reviewing those, and we've established an interview committee. We will be meeting the week of February 7th for those interviews. And then our director of athletics, Mr. Leonard, we will be starting to recruit for his position on February 1st. That posting will go up.
Thanks, Marissa. Any
Thank
question
you.
for Marissa? No? Good. Who's next, Jim?
So, Ms. Wager.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Staying on page 2, one of the first items I'd like to talk about is the board's goal of effective and efficient delivery of the fiscal resources and the objective of maintaining transparency and involving stakeholder engagement during the budget development process. In order to do that, we will continue to prioritize all of our budget requests. We will look at revenue projections. We will continue to look at the use of our federal funds and how we may shift those around. So beginning in December and January, Mr. Simons and I have met with all of the building administrators and department heads to hear what their concerns are, what their requests are, and what their plans are for the next year. We have a summary of those requests as well as a comparison of state aid, which we will be addressing in our next presentation for you. We have budget workshops that are planned on March 9th. We have a tentative budget workshop planned on March 16th. We have another one on March 23rd, and then we're looking for the board to adopt the budget on April 13th. Our updates, I will be providing updates on budgets at every meeting beginning with this meeting through April 13th. This year, we plan on having an added feature for you of providing a presentation on certain areas of the district that are large parts of the budget and that just need a little more attention. One of those areas is our special education department. We have over 650 special education students. So there are a lot of programs, there are a lot of resources that go into that department. So Mrs. McGrath and I will be presenting a special presentation for you later in February. Another area we will most likely be looking at is our operations and maintenance department and looking at what it takes to maintain all of these properties. And then another area we will be talking about in the budget is looking to establish a capital reserve. By establishing a capital reserve, this will allow us to fund the reserve over time, and that will allow us to borrow less money on future capital projects. That saves in interest. The last thing is I will be providing fund balance projections to the board in February and then again in May. The other item I would like to talk about is on page 4, and that is under the goal of collaborative relationships and partnerships with our communities. The board would like to expand collaboration with all towns and villages served by the East Greenbush Central School District, and we are working with the towns regarding community improvement projects. We have a long-range planning committee which met in September, in which we had representatives from the town of East Greenbush come and present to us a Gilligan Road walkway project that they are working on. This project goes along Gilligan Road, which will involve a walkway that runs in front of Goff Middle School. So we hope to be involved with the town in a future capital project in that regard. We also had a meeting in November where we invited guests from the town of North Greenbush and the Spinney Group, and they presented some project developments to us. And we are planning a meeting in February in which we will have representatives from the town of East Greenbush and Skodak. And also at that meeting, we will have an enrollment projection report reviewed with us by CDRPC.
Thank you, Ms. Wager. I would ask the board if they have any questions about any of the information on the scorecard or the information that was highlighted by our administrative team.
Any comments, board members? No, I think that when we set out to develop our goals and the objectives and to track them this way, I think this was the goal that we had in mind in terms of what kind of data we could show the board, the public, and also to make sure that the resources they entrust to us and the work that you're doing with the staff is tracked, it's reviewed, it's revised, changes and corrections are made, and it's all about transparency.
Thank you, Mr. Buena. One thing I want to highlight, and I won't speak too much to it, but on the board docs agenda, where the strategic plan is, it's item 8A. I also attached a document that we put together for the specific courses in career and technical education that our students are currently enrolled in over the last 5 years. And in light of Jennifer's comment about the New Visions program, you can see which courses, including the New Visions programs, that our kids are currently enrolled in. So that's additional data that we're tracking, because in another few weeks, you'll be considering the BOCES budget. And I can tell you that we have a lot of participation in the BOCES, and we enjoy that participation for our students, but also in some of the administrative service areas.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to our next discussion item. We're starting that time of year where we're doing our preliminary planning, and I know the administration was working with their staff to gather some data, and then I'll turn over to Mr. Simons about the preliminary budget information.
Very good. So typically at this time of year, the governor comes out with his or her budget proposal. The executive budget has been released by Governor Hochul. And for the second year in a row, I can tell our board something different than I have told the board and former superintendents have told the board at this time of year, which is we have a very favorable proposal for the state budget from our governor for our school district. You may recall that just a few years ago, really in the period of 2008, 2009, 2010, there was something called the gap elimination adjustment, which was when the state was in really deep fiscal stress, where they subtracted an amount of money in terms of state aid from schools. And that gap elimination adjustment really had a significant impact on the revenue of the East Greenbush School District. 1 or 2 years, that gap elimination adjustment was repaid back to the district, and there was more state aid flowing to the district. And then for a period of time after that, really up until last year, we were getting the minimal state aid increases that were available. And we were one of the districts in the state that was getting the lowest amount each year in terms of an increase. I think it was a 0.75% increase. Last year, we got a good increase in aid. This year, we got even a better increase in aid in the governor's budget. And both in foundation aid and some of our expense-driven aids, it looks like at this point, we're in a much better starting point than we have been in many, many years. So I'm going to ask Linda to detail the state aid proposal, and then I will go over some of the administrator's requests. And all I would say at this point is we are a long way away from a final budget. The process that the board asked me to put in place was one to be transparent. So we asked the administrators for their requests. internally, we are still discussing those requests, and we had a conversation among the administrative team today. And then we bring the information to the board, and then the board gives us feedback, asks us good questions, and we go back and we find ways to perhaps accomplish something that we want to accomplish, but maybe not by adding to our budget, or maybe by adding less to our budget as we anticipate for next year. So Linda, I'm going to ask you if you can go over the state aid report, and then I will talk about some of the administrators' requests.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. I provided you tonight the actual executive proposal from the governor's office of the state aid runs. But in order to make it easier to read, instead of a vertical comparison, I did a side-by-side comparison for you. This is the executive proposal for the current year, and then the executive proposal for the projections for next year. So as Mr. Simons said, this is, we're seeing increases in a couple of areas. The main area of state aid for us is our foundation aid. And in that area, we're projected to receive over $20 million. This current year, it's a little over $18 million. So it's a $1.9 million increase for next year. That's a 10.56%. Our universal pre-K, we started universal pre-K program this year. We currently have 35 students in 2 classrooms at Red Mill. We have aid for 108 students at $5,400 apiece, and that aid is consistent this year to next year. BOCES aid, we receive aid on some of the BOCES services that we pay for through BOCES. We receive aid back the following year. So that aid is dependent on how much we spend in the current year. That is projected to go up. Now that's a large increase, and so that is an area where we're going to look into that calculation a little bit carefully. Public excess high cost aid. These are the public excess cost and the private excess cost aid. These are for our special ed students that are both in our schools and in private schools. Hardware and technology is a categorical aid. That is a certain amount that we get per student. And that's the same calculation for software, library, and textbook. Transportation aid. Transportation, we receive aid on the purchase of our buses. We receive aid on some transportation expenses, such as gas, mileage, maintenance of vehicles, that sort of thing, to transport our students. And then our building aid that we receive is aid that is calculated based on our capital construction projects. So our building aid percentage is 72%. So for every dollar we spend on capital project, we receive 72 cents on those allowable expenses. Not all expenses in capital projects are allowable, but on those that are allowable, we receive 72 cents back. And we get that aid over 15 years. What we try to do is match that aid up with our debt service schedule so that the aid and the debt service follow along the same year. So that way, we try to keep our debt service even from year to year, and we try to keep that building aid consistent with that. So overall, it is a 9% increase in aid. As I said, some of these aid numbers will change as we progress through the budget season. And some of them we're going to look a little bit closer at to make sure that these numbers are as accurate as possible. Are there any questions on the aid? Okay, thank you.
Pretty impressive number, though.
It is very
I've never seen a
impressive.
number like that.
We've never seen these types
Ever.
of,
And it's usually
in the 20 years I've been
minus.
here.
Yeah, it's usually a negative. So, yeah, that's great to see. And I think that one of the things for the community to understand, and this board has always been very, very careful about funding, the impact on the taxpayer. Last year, we went a 0% increase in our tax levy, utilizing the funds that we have available to support our school community, the resources we need, including the federal funds we received, and to make sure that the taxpayer is minimally impacted by anything that we do with our budgets. So good number to see there. All right. Mr. Simons?
Okay, I'm going to give a general overview of the administrator's request. I'm not going to go line by line in the interest of time. This is public information. The board can provide me with feedback or questions at any time, and as can the public. And all of this information is available for anybody within the community to see on our website. So over the course of the last several years, you will notice that the scorecard document, the board's goals, and what we ask the community to support in the budget are aligned with one another. So if we're doing something in the academic program, we're doing something with safety, or we're doing something with community partnerships, the budget and what we choose to spend the money on is aligned with those areas. So we've listed the goals, and then after the goals, we talk about what some of the requests were, and we estimate the cost of those requests. It's early on in the process. We haven't fully prioritized these. We're still having discussions, but over the course of the last several years, our administrators have worked together to be collaborative about this. And so one of the areas that they've identified as a concern, particularly as we're moving into this year, and we've talked about it already tonight, is what can we do to support the behavioral success of children? And there have been some ideas that have been discussed, including the potential to hire a position called a behavior specialist. Behavior specialist is typically someone who is working for a school district or BOCES that provides teachers, counselors, administrators, and support staff with guidance, direction, and individual support in working with a child that may be struggling with behaviors in the classroom and helping professionals figure out a good behavior modification plan and doing a full assessment of the child's behavior and to monitor that. Strategies are shared, support is provided by a behavior specialist. In conversations with the administrators, I've indicated that I don't feel we're ready for that yet. I would like a team similar to what we did a few years ago when we worked on AIS in response to intervention, representing our counselors, our social workers, our teachers, to develop a district-wide plan to make sure that we have a comprehensive system of interventions, preventions, and supports for our kids. I've asked the administrative team to work on that with our staff, and I would ask that we forego the behavior specialist until that plan is done and see where that position might fit within the plan. Similar to what we've done with the RTI coordinator. Now, we took 2 or 3 years to develop a solid program that was data-driven, and then we put the support in place. In order to do that, we might need a little help to relieve our PPS administrators to spend some time working on this. So the administrators at the elementary level and our CSC have asked for a position that would maybe give some release from the running of the CSE meetings, which is pretty significant. And the presentation that Molly will do and Linda will do will kind of show you what the special education process looks like in the district. So this CSE chairperson would take some of the administrative responsibilities for chairing those committee on special education meetings to give our leaders of that department a little bit of time to facilitate the development of that behavioral plan. At the high school, Mr. Harkin has been moving towards supporting community service on the part of students. And our athletic program under Mr. Leonard is very promotional of community service. There's a program that many districts use to help kids track their volunteer work. And one of the things we might ask the board to do is to consider an academic credit for community service. This is a software program. It's an app that the kids can have on their phone. It's provided by the district. And so if they help out at a particular event or an activity, they track it. And then they actually accumulate kind of points and medals and those kinds of things, and they get to different achievement levels. And then we might want to consider giving an opportunity for kids to get academic credit. There's some furniture purchases. There's also at the high school more kids in our life skills class scheduled for next year. That will be a mandated expense. We'll be exceeding the limitations of the class. And so we will need another special ed classroom with a teacher and a TA. Many of the PPS requests align with what the elementary principals have been looking at. We do have grade level content coordinators and department chairs, but we don't have a content coordinator at the middle school and the elementary school level for special education. This is something that was recommended in the program review, so we would ask the board to consider. It's a stipend position similar to what we have for the grade level teachers. And I think it would help coordinate special education programming at the middle school level and make sure that we're tied in and aligned with the high school and the elementary school. There are enough students that reside in the Belltop attendance zone, both in pre-K and in our current students that may have gone to another school, and we reduced that special education class at Belltop. We try to educate our kids in the least restrictive environment, and if we can provide services at the home school, we do. So we think that given the number of kids, we will have a special education class in the K2 grade levels back at Belltop. Library media specialist is still under discussion. There may be ways to not have to add staff and still support the library. For example, this library is open because it's a learning resource lab, and there's extra staff in here right now, and it's been working well. Belltop is the only elementary school that does not have staffing to have the library open all the time. And we currently go to BOCES for the librarian, and we would consider increasing that position to be a district position and have it be 5 days a week. Green Meadow and Red Mill and all of the schools will be meeting with Mr. McHugh to look at academic intervention. Remember, I made a commitment that we were going to have to phase out the early intervention specialists. We want to look at not only the first quarter data, but the second quarter data to see how many students are eligible for AIS. We're going to try to adjust staffing within our current levels, but we may need to bring back to you a plan to show how the federal funds and the general fund would be utilized to reduce our reliance on the federal funds, because we only have those funds until 2024. So we have to work on that a little bit. We're not able to say right now that how we would meet that need for the additional AIS. Some of the schools have indicated that they are in need of furniture. That's an area that we want to address district-wide. We ordered a lot of furniture this year. We want to see what furniture will really be needed if we continue to move successfully away from some of the COVID protocols and restrictions, such as the way we have to set up our cafeterias. We're going to handle that on a district-wide basis before we make any commitment to recommend to the board. Goff Middle School will have an increase in enrollment in the seventh grade. They may need a 0.2 social studies. We have a part-time social studies teacher at the high school, so that might be simply a small increase in FTEs. The RTI coordinator that Mr. McHugh has mentioned, that Lisa Mahar is doing a super job. We confirmed today that we do have year 2 funding and federal funds available to support that position. So if the board supports continuing that, that won't be a general fund expenditure. Technology, we're continuing to move this year with new ViewSonic boards in many classrooms. There is a vacant position in the data department that has been vacant really since the late fall. We have been unable to fill that position because of an outdated job description. We are working to realign that job description. We have a member of the data department here, Todd Witherall, who does a super job, but we also are shorthanded right now. Mr. Goodwin has really requested 2 positions, and I've said to him that I would prefer it to be 1, and to really look closely at everyone's duties within that position, because that position, that vacant position, is already in the budget. It may have to be adjusted a little bit, but we're not settled on that yet. Mr. Leonard has put in a request to expand the number of assistant coaches. We also approved this year some assistants for the athletic director on a seasonal basis. He's asking to have if there is enough interest, a separate boys and girls modified cross-country team, modified 9, which is our freshmen, our 9th graders. And then in the area of operation and maintenance, we're still looking at this. We have a vehicle replacement schedule where we've identified a truck that is used for snow plowing. And I've asked Mr. Bickle, and he is doing this, to look for a less expensive lawnmower to replace the current large. We have 2 large lawnmowers, and the issue is we bought one in 2019. When that is in for mechanical service, the one that is very, very old is inoperable. And so we did have a situation earlier this year where we didn't really have the large lawnmower available to mow our fields. So I am supportive of replacing the lawnmower. I am not supportive of the price tag associated with this lawnmower. And then human resources. We have talked about the job that Marissa Cannon is doing to address the board's concerns regarding human resources and making sure that we continue to have a very standardized, effective recruitment, hiring process. I can tell you that Marissa and her role has really done a lot to address the issues that the board asked me to address when we first had this conversation. She is limited in clerical support with 1.5 secretaries right now, and is looking for more of a clerical position that can do higher level preliminary work to support Marissa in the functions of the Human Resources Office. We also want to move towards automation in terms of our HR functioning. And then in transportation, the board is familiar with the transportation reserve that we use to replace aging buses, and we trade in our old buses. So I didn't really spend a lot of time in detail on this. Those are the general areas. I will just say in general, and I've said this to the administrators, and I want the community to understand this, including our internal community. The budget of a school district goes up every year before you add anything. Okay, so there are $2 million worth of extra either purchases or staff here. But if you take our current budget, which is 103 million, and you consider, which we don't have all of the data yet, salary increases, health insurance, employee retirement payments to the state, and all of those issues, you're looking at a budget that automatically increases between 3% and 5% unless you cut something. Okay, and we're not in a position with aid to need to cut anything, but we are in a position to be cautious, to be careful, and to make sure that we look at everything before we add. So we hope that in some of the meetings in the future, we'll be bringing you, as we have it, salary information, retirement information, health insurance information. We got it. And we really can't make decisions yet on any of these items until we have kind of information that tells us, well, if we just roll over everything we have this year to next year, what's that increase? And so we're still working on that. I'll take any questions that the board may have.
Any questions, board members? John?
Just a quick comment. Last year, we were faced with some challenging times, and we added a lot of interventions and different strategies and programming through the budget. Before we move this budget forward, could we, and we don't need a full-blown audit, but take a look at the interventions and new things that were in last year's budget to analyze and see if they were successful, should they be continued, and or
Yes.
how can we make them better through things, rather than, I don't want to just add things because the money is there. We're also committed to sustainability with our budgets.
That's right.
And being mindful of that, and you have spoke to that. So we want to do all these things, but we just don't want to do it for 1 year. So
That's
if we
correct.
could just take a look at what we tried last year, my saying, train for your weakness, and be honest about it and address it, and then we'll move it forward.
I'd
Thank
be
you.
happy to do that. Yes, we will provide that at a future meeting. Thank you, John.
And Jeff, I just want to say, based on the board, we appreciate your recognition that we're trying to hold the tax rate increase to a very minimal now.
Yes.
And that is key for our taxpayers and our community. So that's understanding that's your priority as well, and we appreciate that.
Yes. that's right. We
And
want to
the-
be as efficient as possible.
The only other item is the vaping technology.
Yes.
Is that in here or is that not in here?
It's not in there as of yet. We've got a team going to take a look at
Yep.
the functionality of it, how it works. But we may be bringing that back to you as a future item.
Would that potentially be this year instead of next year?
It could,
then?
in some of these areas, including equipment, we are looking at whether or not we have room in our current year's budget, and that's where the fund balance projection will come in, to maybe purchase some of these equipment items, such as the furnishing, such as some of the technology this year, so that wouldn't be an add-on to next year.
Okay,
Yes, but we
thank
are
you.
looking at all of that.
Any other questions, board members? The, Linda, you mentioned the special education presentation later. Part of that, could we see this, the special education student enrollment or numbers over the course of the last few years to see how that has changed? Because, looking at the requests from the principals and the ones that are being mandated, obviously are ones that we have to address pretty quickly as part of the overall budget. So just like to see what the numbers look like for that population.
Yeah, so part of our presentation will be a review of the last 5 or 6 years
Okay,
and
good.
how our special education population has changed.
Okay. And our L population, knowing that our enrollment overall is pretty static.
Yes.
As a district. Okay, good. Okay. Appreciate the administration putting together this detailed information to support the requests, and it's a lot of stuff to consider. Any final comments? No? Okay. Moving on to the final discussion item. This is the changes in the Department of Health COVID protocols. Implications for the district, contact tracing, at-home testing, isolation, quarantine, and testing. Some things that we need to consider to keep our students and staff able to come back to school and stay in school.
There have been a lot of significant changes over the last month that have come from New York State. And so, while we have provided communication in writing to our families and our staff, we take the opportunity at a public board and to just kind of go over those things. One of the things some of the board members asked me to do is to create and update some documents that I'll share and go over. And I'll ask Peter to help me pull those up. But in general, because of the changes that are occurring with COVID-19 cases across the state, really across the country, with the Omicron variant being more spreading quicker. And in general, for most of the population, resulting in less serious health symptoms, the state has changed its practices, as has the county. And based on their data, they determined a few weeks ago that the quarantine period for students who've been exposed to a case, and that applies to unvaccinated students, would be in school, as far as schools are concerned, that would be shortened from 10 to 5. And I think our nurses, our staff, and our families really understand that and have adjusted our protocols successfully. It's really the student or the employee coming back on day 6, or the day at which they tested, or the day at which they began to experience symptoms being day 0. And then if symptoms have resolved by the end of the 5th day, fever free for 24 hours as opposed to what used to be 72 hours, then come back to school if they're feeling well enough the next day. So that change was followed up by a movement at the state level away from contact tracing to the point that the state is no longer contact tracing, nor is the county. So that program has been suspended. However, the guidance that was sent to the schools indicated that we were still responsible for identifying those students and employees who were potentially exposed to COVID-19 and making sure that they had the access to the information to either isolate if they're a case or to quarantine if they are a close contact. Again, because of the volume and the changes at the state and the county has moved to what they're calling a self-service program, meaning that the schools will inform families of students who are potentially exposed, only those students that are identified by the state criteria as having to quarantine, which would be unvaccinated students that are in close contact, not wearing the mask, within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. Over the course of the last several weeks, the number of our students who have been quarantined has dropped significantly. That is in part because of the changes that our county made to the bus quarantine rules. And it is also associated with the fact that we have a large percentage of our students vaccinated. So I only say that, I know there was a concern about vaccination, but the criteria of the county and the state has been, if you're vaccinated, you can stay in school. You just monitor symptoms. Okay? If you're not vaccinated, you have to quarantine. And the way that quarantining is occurring right now is students, families, any citizen of New York State that believes that they came into close contact with an individual who was COVID positive has to go on the state or the county website and download information and fill out an affirmation form. And that affirmation form, and as far as the school is concerned, is turned into the school when the student returns. It's also returned by the employees in order to be eligible for COVID leave in certain circumstances. So the county will not be calling anybody anymore, and hasn't been, who may have been exposed to COVID-19. The school district may be calling families of students who have potentially been exposed to guide them through the process, which is all done by the individual families. What's making this shift feasible is the shift from relying on having to have a lab reported test, either antigen or molecular PCR test. That was the requirement before. Now the model is at-home testing. So schools have been provided, so far, we've been provided 3 shipments of at-home tests. We're scheduled to get another one. And we are distributing those at-home tests to our families. We are encouraging, if the family indicates that their child has a symptom, to administer the at-home test. And we are accepting negative at-home tests, and we are accepting positive at-home tests as a reason to be out of school. And a positive result on that at-home test would make students at the middle school and the high school eligible for live stream instruction and tutoring at the elementary school level. We met with the nurses last week. We discussed all of this. One of the things I said to the nurses is that I believe that, based on my conversations with the county and my conversations with the state, that while this transition might be a little bit difficult, I think it's going towards a positive direction, and that we will see less need to be as restrictive, and to and hopefully a reduction in the amount of work associated with COVID on our nurses. Right? So that's the direction right now. We're accepting the at-home tests. Everyone is on the honor system. Obviously, we continue to say, if you're sick, stay out of work. If you're sick, don't come to school. But we've made the adjustments, and they've been in place since last week. And as far as I know, they're going well. Not that there aren't glitches. So we've updated a document, which was a one-page document that we made available to the community at the beginning of the year. And I want to thank Mark, Adam, and Questar Boces for doing this. I'm not going to highlight everything. You know, we've already talked about the masks is still a state requirement. We're still social distancing and ventilating and cleaning and disinfecting our spaces. But if you look at the right side of this document in the right column, there are some changes that we've highlighted. Contact tracing is simpler. It's still a lot of work for our administrators and our nurses, but the district is conducting the tracing only and only informing unvaccinated close contacts that have been exposed at the school. It does require work to look up the vaccination status of our students and our employees on the part of our nurses, which we do have access to through the state system. The testing and screening. We have point of care testing for symptomatic students and staff. Those individuals become symptomatic at school. They go down to the nurse's office. We have point of care testing available. If they test positive, they go home. If their symptoms are significant, they go home. If it's not, we clear the first hurdle by having the test available in school. The person doesn't have COVID, but they still have to implement all of the same protocols that are in place for any potential contagious disease in the school. Surveillance testing is being done by Questar BOCES. We still have a requirement that we test students, or excuse me, employees that are unvaccinated. We have approximately 100 or fewer, 70 employees that are unvaccinated in the district, and we have more than 800 employees. Is that right?
Approximately 800 staff.
Okay. And only about 20 of our teachers are unvaccinated. So we have high levels of vaccination among our employees. The surveillance testing is once a week for employees. Home tests are not permitted. There was a regulation that came to the school district on September 2nd that indicated that it had to be a lab confirmed test, and that regulation hasn't changed. Although we have received questions from our unions regarding that, whether home tests could be utilized. The home tests that we have available are still available. We're giving them to the families free. If they run out of home tests or they don't have one, just call our school main office and we will get it to you. In addition, we are not required to do temperature checks, but we've continued to do them as an additional precaution. The isolation and quarantine section is reflective of the state's new online access. And again, the numbers seem to be coming down. Last week, the 7-day rolling average for positive cases was over 20% of those, and now it is down to 12.5. So what we're seeing is declining in the cases, hoping to get to a level where some of these protocols can be adjusted further. The only other thing I wanted to mention is, because athletics has come up, the current protocols that we've had in place for the winter season are remaining in place. There is a discussion occurring within our county that would indicate that the state may be coming out with further guidance regarding athletics related to the booster. And we're going to wait and see what that guidance looks like before we make any current changes in practices related to athletics. The other thing is, some districts are doing this. I'd like the board to weigh in on this. Those students that are quarantined, in some cases, it would make sense because they have no symptoms, they're asymptomatic. This is for unvaccinated students that would have to be excluded from school for 5 days. We've been talking with Questar BOCES and other districts about a home testing protocol. And that home testing protocol is really the person who's identified as a close contact, a student, tests on the first day that they find out they're a contact. They test on day 2 or 3, and they test on day 5. If they do that at home, okay, they can stay in school. Our whole purpose of all of this is to keep kids in the classroom. So I would like to move to be doing, some districts already moved in that direction. Basically, it's 3 tests within that 5-day period. It's an honor system. The parents do it. The kids can stay in class and come to school.
Comments, board members, on that proposal?
Mike, I have one question.
Mark, go ahead.
excuse me. You said we're still doing temperature checks. So that means they're doing them on the buses as they're coming into all the schools. Is that by staff?
We're not doing it on the buses. We're only doing it when the students arrive at the school.
So if they're showing some type of temperature or something like that, are they immediately being referred to the nurse's office?
They're supposed to be referred to the nurse, yes. We have very few instances of that. We have had some, but we have, across all of the schools, we have very few instances. In most cases, the temperatures are, normal or less. So,
Okay. So, I mean, I just don't want to see us be holding a lot of staff resources in the morning,
yes.
To the temperature checks when, it is something that is not required anymore.
It's something that has been brought up by administrators, and a couple of times when it was a really cold day, Mr. Harkin would call me and say, can we skip the temperature checks today? Because we want to get the kids inside, and we've not done them. It's something we're discussing with the administrative team. Honestly, we might eliminate them. It's under discussion right now. Plus,
Yeah.
especially with staff shortages, and we might be able to use those staff members differently in the mornings.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would support that. I haven't done temperature checks at our place for months.
Okay, I'll talk to the administrators about it, and if it makes things, we haven't had a lot of situations, to my knowledge. I talk to the administrators every week about these things, where we've had a lot of kids that have had fevers coming into the schools.
The any other comments regarding the what is the phrase
It's
called?
an, home
Home
testing
testing
protocol.
program? Okay. I know districts are doing that. Do we have the capacity to have the home test available for
Yes.
this
We have
program?
we have an inventory sheet that Paul Bickle is managing. That is, as administrators pass them out, we're adjusting the administrative. Craig Hansen told us we're getting more
Mhm.
today. This is the model that everyone's moving towards. I think we'll have a sufficient supply of at-home tests to do this. And the other thing is the winter season is almost over with.
Great.
For sports, so the current protocol staying in place makes sense on that. Not to change anything right now. And then, again, spring sports will be outside, and I think we'll be in a better situation.
Mhm.
I think Jennifer had a
Jennifer?
comment.
I would support the, home testing option if it gives the kids more possibility of staying in school, as
Yep.
well as eliminating the temp checks. I haven't done that in a while myself at work or
Okay.
anything, so.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Anyone other comments? And I think as we've seen the trend data, the positivity rates, things are going down in the right direction. I'm hopeful. I think we're all hopeful that things will shift for us. And as they shift and we have the ability to make those shifts, we'll discuss as a board. We have a meeting next week. It's on the calendar already. So looking at I just want to point out too, the coronavirus, the COVID-19 webpage that we have together that shows the data. And if you really look at some of those numbers and the changes and the quarantine levels, the number of students who are no longer having to go through that process, it's just a tremendous change and it relieves a lot of stress on our kids, our families, and things like that. And you look at some of the numbers from way back and then now, it's a pretty good turnaround. So those, again, the goal is to have staff and students be able to come to work and come to school. And really the personal responsibility is shifting to the families. And that's what's going to happen with the affirmations, the home testing, and this making sure you communicate with your school district and your principal about what's happening.
Very good. And the only thing I want to add, because you mentioned the quarantines going down, Todd, again, I want to thank, we don't get a chance to publicly thank you. Todd helps me with compiling information from the nurses regarding what's happening with the vaccination rate. He works miracles in that with that computer. He also gives me a weekly report on attendance, and there's a column on that that tells me how many students are quarantined at every grade level. And I really appreciate that. And the numbers are much, much lower than as a percentage of the overall enrollment in each school and each grade level than what they were back in the fall, and late fall. So again, appreciate Todd, because we monitor all of this, we evaluate how things are going, and Todd's been instrumental in giving me the tools to be able to do that.
Good. Well,
Jeff, I have a question.
Go ahead,
So
Michelle.
when they're out on COVID and they come back, they have to be cleared by a doc before they go back to sports.
Yep, they do, right?
I
What
can
was-
talk about that, but let me
So I
check.
believe they do. And my
Yes, they do.
question is that us deciding to do that? Or is that, the county / New York State? Like,
We-
how does this work?
We've changed it recently. We
Okay.
changed, I was going to talk about that. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. At the beginning of the year, the athletic department reviewed the American Academy of Pediatrics protocol for return to sports. And Dr. Albert, our school physician, recommended that we follow that protocol because of the concern that potentially that some students who contracted COVID might have impacted myocarditis. Okay, might have had, okay. And so that protocol from the American Academy of Pediatrics was designed to bring kids back slowly to full participation in athletics, being monitored by the school physician and coordinated by Sean, our trainer. With this new variant, this issue came to my attention a few weeks ago when I was looking at the guidance and was saying, well, kids can come back after 5 days, but they can't play the sport for another 6 days. And I know a couple of parents had brought that to my attention in the fall that they didn't feel that this process was necessary. And it was not a state requirement. So Sean reached out to me, who's our trainer, and I coordinated communication with Dr. Albert. And that protocol has been adjusted. In fact, as of today, there'll be a process where the parent provides, they have to be released by the school physician. But the process of coming back could occur within 3 days with a little bit of exercise, so it's going to become a 3-day process. And when I saw advice of the attorney regarding whether we could simply eliminate this, he said, you should follow the advice of the school physician. And so our school physician has been involved in this process, and we've shortened it. We've made it easier for the kids to come back, unless there's a situation where the child's primary care provider provides information that indicates the symptoms were more serious and there was potential for this myocarditis. And in most cases, with all of our high school kids, the symptoms have resolved within 3 to 5 days. And there hasn't been really any issues. So it's a much milder strand, and therefore we're modifying that procedure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, board members? Okay. So for the spring sports, we'll hear from the section, we'll hear from Mr. Leonard probably, and then we'll, we know the position that the board has taken to make sure not only sports, but also extracurricular activities has a lot of participants, including, music, drama, other clubs, things like that are also incorporated into what's known as extracurricular activities. So we have to consider all those students as well as we do our protocols, and we're opening those things up as well. So, okay. Final comments on discussion? No? Okay. Moving on to regular business. Approval of programs for resident children with disabilities. Any comments or questions? Need a motion to approve that? Kathleen, second John. All those in favor? Approved. Request to correct the tax rolls. I don't think there's any questions on that. If there is, Linda, anything for Linda? No? Just some corrections, right?
No, these are very small
Yep.
corrections from the towns to our tax rolls.
Yep.
Very small
Very good.
classification type things.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve that. Joanne, second. Jennifer, all those in favor? Approved. Health and Welfare Services contract with Wine and Skill. Any questions? Need a motion to approve that. Kathleen, second. Cheryl, all those in favor? Approved. Special Education Services contract with Manan School District. Any questions there? It's a little unusual circumstance, but we're sending a child who family moved here and going to stay in that program temporarily.
Yes.
Right? And then move to the district program at the next year, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Any questions on that? Seeing none, need a motion to approve that. Michelle, second. Frank, all those in favor? Approved. Committee reports. Briefly, Marissa.
Very brief. Our calendar committee met for the first time this year on Monday. And we had our initial conversation about the 2022-23 calendar. We reviewed the Questar calendar. We've reviewed some of our religious holidays. We took a look at superintendent conference days, professional development days. So very preliminary. And our calendar committee is set to meet again on Monday, February 7th. For staff vacancies, we have a couple of part-time teaching assistant positions open at the middle school and high school level. We have one full-time position open at Goff Middle School for a teaching assistant, and then one bus aide position due to a recent resignation. And we have a couple of monitor positions at our elementary level. Any questions?
Thanks, Marissa.
You want to talk about the Spanish position?
Almost forgot. It's great
Good
news.
news today.
Yes.
What's that?
Mrs. Barker and I completed the final round interview for our middle school Spanish vacancy around 4:15 this afternoon. And we are very excited to announce that we have a certified Spanish candidate who is a retiree of Amsterdam School District. And he has accepted, not probationary, but has agreed to stay on through June of 2022 and cover the remaining 5 months of the school year. So his long-term substitute appointment will be on the February 2nd agenda. Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Excellent.
And our nurse candidate did accept the position. She cannot start due to notice requirements until March, but she did accept the position.
Oh, that's good news too.
And we're working on clearance on that. So thank you for the support of the board.
You're welcome. Linda, anything?
Yes, very quickly, the advocacy committee met on Monday. We talked about the amounts of state aid that we are projected to receive next year. And so the committee was faced with the question, well, what do we advocate for? And
We've never had that problem.
and in the past, we've always advocated for more state aid. We talked about 3 areas basically that we could advocate for, and that one of those is to extend the expiration dates on the federal funding that we've received. Another area would be advocating for the legislature to increase the amount of allowable undesignated fund balance, which is currently at 4%. We could advocate to increase that. And then also in the governor's proposal, we talked about the shortages in staff in teaching right now in the teaching profession, and how the teaching profession is not keeping pace with those that are leaving the profession. Part of the governor's proposal is to increase the limit that retirees can make. So that will assist us in bringing some of those retirees back to help us with the staff shortages that we face. That currently they can make $35,000, and she is looking to increase that to the $50,000. Mrs. Hosier, the EGTA president, talked to the students on the committee about the rewarding profession of being an educator and what it's like to make a difference in someone's life. And Mr. Garib also talked with the students in the committee about, he gave an example of a student who was interested in teaching. She just started hanging out and observing classes. She later went through the Questar program, and now she is at St. Rose. And she is also approved as a teaching assistant in our district. So she is earning a little money. She is in the classroom when she's not in her college courses. So all great things, and we're looking forward to our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Jim? Good, thank you. Mr. Simons?
Yes. Very briefly.
You had your chance.
Our Committee on Global Education met. We reviewed the professional development offerings that have been participated in this year. We reviewed further professional development activities that will be provided throughout the rest of the year. We've had high participation. We also talked about the some of the resources that one of our E&L teachers had put together to support the need to make sure that we are as inclusive as we can be with our students and our families. Additionally, I spoke about making sure that everyone was aware of the translation service that is available. In particular, Mr. McHugh has highlighted this before, we have the ability to provide information from the school district in a family's home language where necessary. And as we look at some situations that we've had this year regarding student discipline and policies, we want to make sure that that service is accessed in the event that a student or a family needs to have our policies related to discipline and our procedures understood by the family so that we don't make sure that language isn't a barrier to ensure due process for our kids. Additionally, we had a meeting of the Business Advisory Council. This is a group of businesses, colleges, and educators within our district to discuss various ways that we can connect with each other to provide resources so that students know what pathways are available to them after graduation. We had a presentation that was organized for us by Siemens Corporation, which is a global energy company that works with schools. The presentation was provided by an opportunity to provide the kids with information regarding careers. There's a career jam that has been held annually as a in-person event, and they have shifted last year and this year to have some virtual resources available for kids. We had the highest number of middle school kids in the capital region, or of any students, participate in Career Jam last year. Thanks to Debreen Oliva, who's our family consumer science teacher at the middle school. All of our 8th graders were part of that virtual experience last year. And the organization is bringing to us a demonstration of a rocket drone program that our kids can get involved in building and participating in competitions with rocket drones. And Mr. Harkin has arranged something for our district to host at Columbia High School on March 1st and other districts, and we'll be able to see, including our students, what this rocket drone program is all about. Additionally, we had a presentation on building automation systems, which is an area where there are lots of jobs available and few people in those jobs. And there was an organization out of Georgia that did a virtual presentation for us on different pathways for kids to enter into building automation fields, what education and training was involved in accessing those different levels of positions, and what the compensation is. And it's very good compensation. And in many cases, those jobs do not require a college degree. So it was a very good meeting. We left very excited after it, and there's some follow-up activities occurring on March 1st.
Very good. I just wanted to that business partnership, business advisory is critical because I think, John, you mentioned earlier in the meeting about in parents and information about which career path, which courses to take, and how to, find out what those opportunities might be. And the businesses can tell us 3-5 years from now, they're projecting the needs, and those are important things to tie into your students' goals for their education.
Thank you. That
Thank
concludes
you.
the committee reports.
Table motions, I don't have anything at this time. Old business, board members, anything? No? Okay. Go into our consent agenda and items A through G. Any questions, comments, revisions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Joanne, second. Kathleen, all those in favor? Approved. Go into next item. Nothing, Jeff?
Nothing more.
New business, board members, anything to bring at this time? Yeah, we do have a board meeting next week as well. Public forum, this is our second public forum. Is there anybody who'd like to address the board this time? Yes, sir. Just need your name and address in relationship to the district.
My name is Benjamin Kissel. My address is 234 North Greenbush Road. I'm actually in Troy, but it's still
East Greenbush.
part of the district.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm here because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I was saying how, thank God, we haven't done anything in our school district regarding mandatory vaccines. And she actually corrected me and said September something was passed, and I'm honestly ashamed that I had no idea. I'm pretty uncomfortable that any kind of mandate has been set in place, and it's pretty ridiculous to me that it's for select indoor sports that are deemed high-risk sports. But gym class is still taking place. That's indoors in the gymnasium. They're playing basketball in gym. It's just a joke. Like, I can't even take you people seriously. So I'm pretty uncomfortable. I have a lot to say about it, and I want to know where it ends. So in a year from now, if the state says everybody's got to get vaccinated, is this school board going to do that? And some other questions I have are regarding, I know you're saying it's only for indoor sports and it's only for certain sports, but I mean, it just doesn't make me feel good as a parent with kids going to this school district that it could basically flip on a dime. And I'm kind of hearing that state funding and federal funding is a big deal. And I'm pretty sure that if the school board and the school district were to stand against the state and say, no, we're not going to do this, some of that funding would probably stop. Or you might have a harder time applying for it or being awarded it. And from just sitting here for the last 2 hours, that's pretty much what I'm coming to terms with. Is it seems like the school board and the school district are more concerned with funding, and it's not that big of a deal if the modified volleyball team or wrestling team has to get vaccinated. But it's a huge deal because that opens the door, and there's a foot in the door now, and the door has to stay open now. So I'm concerned as to where it ends, and I'm concerned as to how do you guys take it seriously? Like I said before, the gyms are open, the kids are playing, there's a million kids running around. How is volleyball high risk? Like, how can you say that out loud and take yourself seriously? That wrestling is a high risk sport. And I understand that the response is, oh, we're just following the CDC guidelines. We're just doing what we're told. But you have the right to say no, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't see that happening. I see you're more focused on who's vaccinated and all the numbers, but the vaccine doesn't give you immunity. So I fail to see how that's important. And it's like a million flags raised in my head. Everybody sitting here is just super calm. I don't understand, honestly.
Okay, well, I appreciate your comments. You've emailed us, right?
Absolutely.
And we provided a response. I think we did cover a lot of the topics that you unfortunately may have missed during the first public forum as well. So I think based on your questions, the comments that you made through the email process, we responded to that. We can't predict what's going to happen in the future. You're asking us to do things that, or asking us to address things that we can't predict at this point. So every time that the board has met, we've talked about this kind of item, COVID-related issues frequently since going back, months. So I can't address all the questions that you have. We try to address the questions you brought to us in the email. And that's really, at this point, I don't know how else to answer you.
In response to that, the response I got back from the email seemed like it's probably the same as every concerned parent. It seemed like copied and pasted, honestly. Like, we're doing what we are being instructed to do by the CDC. We're following guidelines. And it's like, that's kind of not an answer. It's like, it's the same old answer. It's the political answer, the politically correct answer that skirts the original question. So the original question is, why is it okay for this mandatory vaccine to play indoor sports? They're not high risk sports. They're not any more high risk than gym class. So
We understand. We understand.
I don't think you do understand, because
Okay, well,
you
we did
guys
address
passed that vote. So you must not.
No, we did
I'm
address
really
it at the
confused.
time. We communicated what we were doing. We had several board meetings where we talked about it, and we had a final vote prior to winter sports occurring. So you can go through the information and see what we talked about and what happened at that time. And we made some decisions about spring sports, outdoor sports, and, you know, again, our ultimate goal, as we continue to make sure people are aware, is that we want our community to be safe, we want our staff to be safe, we want our kids to be in school every day, and that's the goal we strive for, following the guidance that's out, what we can do best as a community, as a board, to do what's best for our families. I don't know what
All
else
the
to tell you.
guidance in the world, though, it doesn't make any difference. You're either gonna get COVID and die, or you're not going to. Period, the end. It
Wait.
doesn't matter if you're the governor or the CDC or whoever.
Okay.
It's
I
not up
understand. I
to
mean,
us.
We hear what you're saying.
I mean,
I've given you my response. I'm not going to engage in a back and forth because we did talk about this. We're going to continue to talk about it as a board. When issues come up, changes occur in guidance. We just talked about it during discussion about isolation quarantine. That's what this board does. We're a body that looks at the information that we have, makes the decisions in the best interest of the community and the school district.
I don't
and we
understand
move
how you're
forward.
making decisions, though, when the majority of the people in this room have gotten a vaccine and they've probably gotten COVID after that, and you're still going to tell me that it's in the best interest for those kids playing volleyball to get a shot. It's keeping them safe, right? So they get a shot, they don't get COVID, and they're allowed to play volleyball. That's not true. So you can repeat yourself all you want, but I want to come here tonight and look you all in the face because I sent you all the same email. It's very disturbing. And I don't agree with any of you and your vote. So try to look yourself in the mirror tonight and repeat back to what I said. You probably got your shot and then you probably got COVID, but you're telling yourself it's working. It's not working. The vote is not working. It's not going to save kids that are playing basketball. And from here, the foot's in the door, and I don't see you guys taking it back. So it makes me even more uncomfortable because I see if the state says X, Y, and Z about outdoor sports or indoor sports, you're probably going to pass it. And then where are we going to be a year from now or 6 months from now? And I know it's hard to say, but from just sitting in that chair for 2 hours, it pretty much caught me up to where I am right now.
Okay. Well, we
I don't
appreciate
have a
you
lot
coming
of
here
faith,
tonight,
honestly.
expressing your views, telling us what your opinion is, and
I'm all
what your
set.
beliefs are. So we appreciate it.
That's all I had to say.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
have a good night. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. I can understand his anger and frustration. Again, Michael Sini. I respect what you guys do here. I would love to go back to a world like all of us pre-COVID where I do what I do after work and you guys manage what's in the best interest of the kids. We just have this one sticking issue. I stand with him as far as the vaccine goes. I'm a police officer. I have natural immunity. It's been tested in my blood, confirmed. My kids are around me all day, every day. They're unvaccinated. I'm unvaccinated. I think the one thing that's very clear to pretty much everybody in the community right now is that Rensselaer County's done an amazing job offering the vaccine to anybody who wants it. And I actually support that and agree with that with everything in me because I believe in choice. That being said, at this point, we're in a fork where everyone that wanted it got it. Everyone that didn't take it is not going to take it. And so as a district and as a school board, I would just encourage you guys to consider that the people that haven't taken it by now, I can speak for the vast majority of them, they're never going to. This is your population now. So nobody asked for COVID, but here it is. As a board, just consider that there are families like mine. I'm a combat vet from multiple tours. I still work as a police officer. I promise you, nobody asks me for my vaccine card when I walk up to a car accident or go to a domestic. It's never an issue. And, you know, I explained to my daughter to treat everybody the same in every regard. And in this, I can say with a straight face, even though they don't treat you the same, because now she's in sports and now it's awkward. She has to stay home for 5 days. My daughter has natural immunity. She's around me. I don't do anything different with her. She's been blessed, God-given, beautiful immune system that has protected her through this whole thing. Same with my son. They're healthy. I feel terrible for anyone that's affected, but it's seemingly like my kids are being punished for being healthy and good choices and their own God-given immune system. And it's beyond frustrating. Again, I do respect all of you. I believe you have the kids' best interest in heart. However, we've came to different conclusions on what's going on here. And I would just ask for the mutual respect to try to keep things as level as possible. I can see you're making attempts, and I do appreciate that, but realize that, you know, the rest of us, we're counting on you guys to keep my kids in school and keep them educated so that I don't have to pull them out and do all these crazy things that I never planned on. All right. So
Yep.
that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on to the board forum. I'll start on my right this time. Frank, anything?
All set.
Joanne, anything? Kathleen? Good. Jennifer? John? Good. Michelle's good. Cheryl? Mark? I can't see it. Was that a thumbs up? Okay. And I don't have anything, so. We do have need for an executive session, Mr. Simons, correct, for a purpose of legal and contractual issues?
Yep.
So we don't expect any board business after executive session, so I want to thank you and everyone's participation this evening. It was a long meeting, a lot of information was shared, but we appreciate it. Mark, just hang out. We'll send you a new link for the executive session. So have a great night, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.